So, you're interested in getting into WoW. We're going to go over all the basics you need to get started without being left lost and confused. First thing, which version of the game? This video covers retail, which is the current modern version of WoW. So you want to head over to battle.net and find the World of Warcraft free trial, play free up to level 20. From here, you should be able to install the game for free. Doing this may also have you install the Battle.net launcher, which looks like this. You want to make sure you're in the World of Warcraft section, and in game version, it will be live World of Warcraft. Click play and you're in business. Since you're a new player, there's no reason to dump all your hard-earned cash right off the bat. As you play, start with the free trial. Once you hit level 20, if you're still having a good time, at that point you would get the $15 subscription. So the $15 a month sub will let you play all the content through the beginning to War Within until you reach level 80, at which point then you would look at buying the current expansion Midnight. And this will get you all the new content and let you level from 80 to 90. Before you make your first character though, you need to decide what realm you're going to play in. Realms do not have a huge impact because you can still play with your friends regardless of what realm you're on. It is worth noting that playing on the same realm as a friend will allow you to run into them in the open world without even partying up, which it can be pretty fun to run into somebody you know without necessarily planning on it. And besides friends, some realms will have much higher populations. A high pop realm will make the world seem more alive with more active players. Also, if you're interested in the gold economy, some items are sold per realm, while others are sold across all realms in the region. So you've selected your realm, it's finally time to create your first character. Two big factions in WoW are Horde and Alliance. They each have their own corresponding races that associate with them, and the factions also have their own extensive lore. This game's been around for more than 20 years. They have their own unique capitals, and if you PvP, this is the faction you will rep. These inner rows will probably all be grayed out for you. These are allied races that you can actually unlock by doing some quest lines once you reach, I think, level 40. But they're not too difficult to unlock. Each race has its own set of racial abilities. Right-clicking opens up the extra information, lets you see their racial traits. Zandalaris have an ability to heal themselves rapidly over a short time. They can beseech a Loa to obtain a powerful boon. They discover more gold from creatures, and they can summon a Pterodax to reduce falling speed. Each race has its own racial traits. Since this is your first character, I would go with the rule of cool. If you think a certain race looks cool, or you just vibe with it, go for it. You will notice that not every race can be every class. Let's look at a human. A human can be everything except for druid, shaman, demon hunter, and evoker, where a night elf can be everything except for paladin, shaman, and evoker. Evoker's kind of unique because only the Drakthir can play as evokers, but warrior, hunter, mage, rogue, priest, and warlock are available to every race. Selecting your class is the main thing to consider here when creating a character because each class has its own unique playstyle and flavor, and the class of your character is the one aspect that you cannot change after creation. When first considering what class you want to play, you want to think about what roles you would like to fill in the game. WoW works based on a trinity system using tanks, healers, and DPS, which stands for damage per second. DPS could further be broken down into melee DPS and ranged DPS. Every class has multiple specs or specializations that you can swap between freely, but not every class can fill every role. Take a druid, for example. This class is very versatile, and it has 4 specializations with the option to play as each of the 4 different possible roles. Guardian Druid spec is a tanking spec, commonly referred to as bear tank. Tanks lead groups through dungeons and raids as the frontline protectors. As a tank, you're the one that wants to take all the attention and hits from the enemies to protect the squishier DPS and healers. The Restoration Druid spec is the Druid Healing spec. As a healer, your job is to keep the group healthy and try your best to prevent deaths. This can be a tough job or an easy one, depending on the group, because there are many sources of damage that are avoidable completely, diminished through use of defensive abilities, or stopped by the use of interrupts or crowd control. We'll cover all of that combat stuff more in depth later, but just know don't be too hard on yourself when healing. It's not your fault if Frodo Fraggins dies because they were standing still in the fire. So besides Guardian Druid and Restoration Druid, there is also Feral and Balanced Druid. These are the melee and ranged specs. Feral Druid is the melee spec. Melee DPS is a damage dealer that needs to be in close melee range to hit the enemies. Melee is very engaging and exciting as you maneuver and position closely, but sometimes you may encounter mechanics where you simply have to wait out some dangerous abilities that prevent you from closing ground and getting some damage in. And then Balanced Druid is the ranged DPS role of a Druid. Ranged DPS deal their damage from range, and the trade-off is that you usually have to spend some of your time hard casting some of your abilities. Hard casting is when you're using an ability that is not instant. It has a cast time, so you will have to stand still and wait for a certain period of time until that ability finishes casting. Moving or jumping will interrupt this, and since some of your damage will rely on hard casting, you have to be very conscious of your positioning and movement throughout an encounter, since any time spent moving means you're not casting. Ranged are also typically a little less tanky than melee, since you're not going to be up in the enemy's face. So while a Druid can play any 4 of the specs, other classes have less choices. Mage, for example. Mage has 3 specs, but all of them are ranged DPS. So no matter what flavor of mage you're playing, you are doing damage, and you are doing it from range. Then we have Rogue. Rogue has 3 specs that are all DPS, but they are all melee. So no matter what, if you're playing a rogue, you are in the enemy's face dealing damage, or behind their back. Warlocks are another class with 3 DPS specs that are all ranged, similar to mage. And a hunter has 3 DPS specs, but a little bit more variety. They have 2 ranged specs and 1 melee spec. Warriors can play as tanks or as melee damage dealers. Priests can play as healers or ranged DPS. Monks can play as tanks, healers, or melee DPS. Demon Hunters can play as tanks, melee DPS, or mid-range damage. Mid-range damage is somewhat new to the game. You do deal range damage, but it's a little bit more limited than full-ranged characters. Evokers can play as healers or mid-range DPS. Evokers also have the only support spec in the game. Augmentation Evokers are focused on powering up their allies as opposed to dealing massive damage themselves. This is also somewhat new to the game. They've kind of had a tough time carving out their place. Paladins can play as tanks, healers, or melee DPS. Shamans can play as healers, ranged DPS, or melee DPS. And last, Death Knights can play as tanks or melee DPS. So there are 13 classes to choose from, and each one of them has multiple specs to choose from. So pick a class that looks cool. The only thing about a character that cannot be changed after you create it is its class. So don't stress too much on the appearance or gender, because you can change those later as much as you want. Some things that you can change, but will cost you a little bit of money, are your name, race, faction, and even realm. After you've created a character, the first time you selected to enter the world, you may be presented with a choice of your starting experience depending on the class and race you have selected. Certain classes, like Death Knights and Demon Hunters, have very specific origins that they have to go through before you are dropped off into the rest of the game. Some of the more basic classes and races will offer you a choice of Exile's Reach, which is kind of like a tutorial island, basically, or something a little bit more RP specific to that race. So the most beginner-friendly starting experience is Exile's Reach, which takes you through a basic tutorial from levels 1 through 10, and then will drop you off at your faction's capital, Stormwind for the Alliance, and Orgrimmar for the Horde. After the tutorial is finished, this is a good time to get some basics set up with your UI and your key bindings. I would do this sooner than later so you don't develop any bad habits that you'll have to break later. The basic layout shows us action bars at the bottom, where we will be placing our abilities onto these buttons to use. We've got a mini-map up in the corner, got a chat box, we've got our quest objectives here, got our bags, and our menu buttons. This is our character nameplate, where we can keep track of our name, level, HP, and mana. Or if you're a class that uses different resource than mana, you might have a different resource listed here. So the first 2 things that I would recommend that you avoid is clicking abilities to use them, and keyboard turning. Both of these are slow and inefficient, which will make gameplay much more difficult. Bad habits to make. If you never get used to them, then you don't have to break them later. For turning your character, I'd recommend holding the right mouse click. This will let you turn your camera and your character together. So when you're holding right click and you turn, whichever way you face is the way that your character is facing. Now, if you want to turn your camera without turning your character, just left click. This is useful for if you happen to be moving in one direction. You can look behind you or to the side or wherever, or if you're just trying to look at your character and get some cool angles. For the majority of your abilities that you're going to be using, instead of clicking, like that, if you'll look right now, there are some basic keybinds already placed. So right here, 4. I can use Arcane Explosion when I press 4. Easy to do. Now, as you can imagine, if you have a whole bunch of abilities that you're using, you're going to be dragging your mouse and clicking all over the place. It's too hectic. So both UI and keybinds in WoW are highly customizable. And of course, many people have their own preferences and opinions, so I'll just explain how I like to set things up. You can take what you like from that and adjust it to suit your own needs. But the important thing is that gameplay and control feel smooth and natural for you. I personally enjoy using WASD for moving my character. W's forward, S is back, A and D strafe me left and right. So when I move, there's no camera movement happening. If I ever want to, let's say I'm running and I'm going to want to turn left. So I'm just going to hold W this whole time. The only key I'm going to press is W, and I'm going to do my turning by holding right click and just turning real quick. Super easy. Now, if you're doing the camera turning with right click, it's much twitchier and you have much more control over it. If you're keyboard turning, look at this. I'm running in a circle here, when I can like stop on a dime and immediately turn around with my mouse instead. And using A and D to strafe also allows me to keep my character facing one way, keep my eye on an enemy, and move to the sides to dodge abilities easier. Next, we're going to prioritize the keys closest to WASD for our essential core rotational abilities. These are abilities that will be pressing the most. So these keys are high ticket, high priority real estate because we can reach them quickly and easily. So since we're using WASD, we have stuff like caps lock, Q, 1, 2, 3, 4, E, R, F, C, X, Z. These are all really good keys to use for abilities that we're going to be using a lot because we can reach them so quickly. Just because it's close to WASD, that may not necessarily make them easier for you specifically to use. Whatever is easiest for you to press, those are going to be the highest priority keys to make important keybinds with. I personally use an MMO mouse. I have a Corsair Scimitar, and this mouse has numbers 1 through 0, as well as hyphen and equal sign. Once I started using the MMO mouse, gameplay really opened up for me personally a lot. It's by no means necessary, but I do recommend them. Another helpful thing when setting up your abilities is trying to use similar abilities on the same key across classes. For example, I really like using the Q for self-heals, I like using E for interrupts, I like using R and F for my builders or most pressed abilities, and then I like using C for movement ability. But that's just me personally. You can set this up however you like. But if you use similar abilities across classes, it makes learning new classes a lot easier. So we're going to hit escape and go to the options menu to do some quick changes that I recommend on new characters. So first of all, I like having some more action bars. Usually 2 through 5 I like to activate. Personal preference, of course, but you're going to want at least 2 or 3 bars down here. 1 bar is just not enough for the amount of abilities in the game. It's just not going to cut it. So I like to turn on some extra bars, and then in the key binding section, there is quick keybind mode. So whenever you enter quick keybind mode, this lets you hover over a button and assign a key press to it. My action bar 1 is already set up 1 through 0 and then hyphen and equals. So what I can do is very quickly and easily add a whole bunch of new keybinds using some of my other keys that I like to press. And not only that, you can also set up modifiers. A popular one is a shift modifier. I'm just going to add a shift version of each of these. So shift 1, 2, 3, and so on. I'm essentially doubling the amount of buttons I have, but I'm still using the same buttons. So I went from having 12 buttons on these keys to adding shift to add 12 more. That's 24 buttons now. I already explained that I like using other certain keys like Q, E, R, F, and C. In addition to that, I like setting up shift versions of those. You can actually set up scroll wheel as ability uses, but not through the quick keybinding menu. So to set that up, you'd go back to keybindings again. This is action bar 3. So I'm going to open up action bar 3 and see 11 and 12. When I hover over it, it kind of shows you. So I'm going to click this and then scroll up, click this and scroll down. Now I have mouse wheel up and mouse wheel down as action bar buttons. Pretty nifty. Of course, you can use shift as a modifier, but you could also use control as a modifier. And if you're real freaky, you can set up an alt modifier. What's important is what works for you. I can hit P to open up my spellbook. And here's where I can see all of my spells and abilities, and I can drag these onto my action bar, onto the button that I want to associate with. You may notice that some spells in this book are square and others are circles. The squares are abilities that can be activated with a button press, but the circles are passive abilities. There's no reason for me to put these on my bar because I cannot activate them by pressing a button. But hovering over them and reading them will help me understand my class a little bit better. Looking up at the top, you'll also see that there is a general tab. Here we have spells that are not class specific, like racials. This is a Hairneer character, and I have Thornbloom. Thornbloom is a racial that I can use. So is Root Walking. This is kind of like a way to teleport around the world. I could assign this to one of these buttons, but I'm actually just going to put it here. Not every button needs a keybind. So I'm playing as a mage, a class that can create portals that my group members in my party can use to go to whichever major city I've set the portal up to. I don't really need to put this on a keybind because I'm not going to be pressing this during combat. It's not going to help me. I could have a portal right here on these sidebars, which I don't have a keys set to, but I could just easily click stuff over here. Same thing with my Arcane Intellect, that buffs the party, but it lasts for an hour, so I don't need to reapply this unless people die. Same thing with Conjure Refreshments. I'm not really going to be doing that during combat. It's not super important that I can instantly press a key to do that. So I'm fine just going over here to the edge of my screen, conjuring some refreshments. Some other settings that I like to change personally, I recommend turning on auto loot. So what auto loot does is, like the name suggests, it just loots everything from the enemy once you click it. It's a lot quicker and easier, and it saves you on a lot of time because this whole game is about killing enemies and getting loot. So I loot it and I'll deal with sorting it out later. Next, under controls, I like to scroll down a bit to camera. I like to set camera following style to never adjust camera. This means that if I'm walking and I move my camera like this, it's not going to switch back and swing behind my character, which is really disorienting and annoying, especially if you're trying to watch something else while you're just auto running somewhere. Speaking of auto run, if you go into key bindings and movement keys, you can set up an auto run key. If you don't want to be holding down on the W key for an eternity, you can press that sometimes. If you type in class colors, I like to set both of these display class colors to being checked. This makes it so that when I have a party or when I'm in a raid, I'm going to see, instead of green health bars, if you're in a full raid, there's going to be a shitload of green health bars here. Not super helpful if you want to know the actual composition of your raid. So if you turn on display class colors, it'll show the class, instead of a green bar, it's going to be the color bar of their class. Each class has an associated color, and while it takes a little time to recognize them, after playing for a while, you will memorize these colors. Next, we'll talk about edit mode. You can access edit mode from the escape menu by just clicking edit mode here, or you can actually right click your character and go to edit mode. In edit mode, you can move your UI elements around as you like and even change some settings for them too. This is like the very basic modern preset UI, which is great and all, but after playing the game for a few years, I kind of have developed what I like, so I have this preset called good. But in edit mode, you can move anything around to whatever works best for you. Like normally the party frames are way up here. I like to move them down here where I can see them, and if you click on it, I also like to use raid style party frames. And this is also where the display class colors will come into effect, where each of these health bars will be the color of the class. But clicking on any one of these elements will bring up if there's some extra things you can change about, whether it's the height of my quest objectives, you can change the opacity of the background, whether you want to have one or not, and even the text size if you want to have real big text or if you want it nice and small. Another thing I suggest is moving your debuffs. So here's my buffs up here, and that's fine and dandy, but for debuffs specifically, I like to know if there's something nasty on me. So I have these over here where I can see them a lot easier. So if there's any debuffs, I want to know, especially if it's a mechanic where something bad is put on me. I want it to be immediately obvious. Next thing I would suggest in the options menu is going to gameplay enhancements. And here you can enable some things like boss warnings. So here's some boss abilities and boss warnings. We'll let you know if something nasty is about to happen, and this little timeline will scroll down showing you which abilities the boss is about to use. Very handy. The cooldown manager which lets you customize how you keep track of your abilities, buffs, and procs in combat so you can play your class more efficiently. The cooldown manager will start off pretty basic, but as you level up and learn more abilities, it can get pretty intense. You can also turn on external defensives, diminishing returns, and the damage meter. Damage meter is used to let you see your damage per second and your overall damage, and how you're performing compared to your group. It's not meant to discourage, even if being at the bottom of the meters sucks, but it is good at helping you identify issues with your rotation, which is just using your abilities in the optimal order to get the most damage out. So I've used some lingo like procs and rotation, and I'll get into more of that soon once we're doing the combat section. But first we're going to kind of keep going over some of these menus so you know that they exist and what they do. So if you hit this little button down here with your character on it, or hit C, by default you will open up your character sheet. I have rebound it to T because I like to use C for movement abilities like I said before, but this is your character sheet. This shows your character's name, level, spec, class, all your gear slots and equipped gear, lets you see your average item level, your attributes, which are your primary stats, and your enhancements, which are your secondary stats. Every gear slot will have gear with an item level that will all apply to your average item level here, except for shirt and tabard. These are just for cosmetic purposes. As for attributes and enhancements, you can mouse over each one to see exactly how that stat is contributing to your character. Depending on your class and spec, it could be intellect, agility, or strength, but every class will have stamina and armor, and all 4 of these enhancement stats: crit, haste, mastery, and verse. While your primary attribute is always going to be good and helpful for your character, for enhancements, gear will typically only provide extra stats for 2 out of the 4. And which ones you want will depend on the spec you're playing and how you're building out your talents and your character in general. You can hit these buttons to switch between your character stats, your titles, and your equipment manager. Titles simply add a little flavor to your name and can be earned in many different ways. The equipment manager is used for setting up and quickly swapping gear loadouts. This could be great for anyone playing multiple roles or also playing PvP as well as PvE, so you could quickly swap between sets of gear better suited towards whatever activities you're wanting to do. At the bottom, there's also a reputation tab and a currency tab. Reputation tab lets you track that character's reputations with different factions throughout the game, separated by expansion. Blizzard has introduced a warband system as a way of making the game much more account-friendly, so many things are now account-wide instead of character-specific. So if I switch this to warband, this is going to show me all of my warband reps. So warband reps are shared across all your characters. I am renown 11 with the Amani tribe, and that applies to all my characters. And any character I'm playing will contribute to that. However, with the game being over 20 years old, not all of the reps were designed with this in mind. So currently some of the reps are warband wide. Blizzard has committed to slowly working back through old expansion reputations to make them warband wide as well. Next is the currency tab, which shows you all your currencies. Using the drop down menu here, you can actually see all of your warband transferable currencies. So these are currencies that I may have across all of my different characters. And I can switch them over to this character by clicking them and clicking transfer. So if I wanted to transfer some displaced corrupted mementos, I would click on it, click transfer, and then I could pick which character I want to transfer it from to Yeti. So Sidelich has 7,371 of these. I could do max, or I could just type in a specific number like 200, and then I would confirm, and that would transfer it to my character. Not all currencies are warband transferable, but of course it is nice for those that are. Next, I'll direct you to the talents menu, which you can open with the N key or by clicking this little target button down here. So here is your talent trees. The left tree will always be your class-specific tree, so this tree is going to remain the same across all of the different specs you play. And the right side will be the specialization tree. Right now, Yeti is a frost mage, so this is what the frost specialization for mage looks like. If I were to switch over to fire mage or arcane mage, this would be a different tree over here. If I ever want to switch to a different spec, I would just come over here to the specialization tab and click activate on the spec that I want to play as. But I purposefully made Yeti with frost mage in mind, so we're going to keep that, and I'm going to come back to the talent trees. This can feel like information overload for anyone, let alone a new player, but don't sweat it. Talents can be swapped on the fly without any consequences, so feel free to experiment and go through the trees however you please. This little drop-down menu, you can even select a starter build. So a starter build will recommend you which talents to take as you level up, or even if you have a max level character. Let's say your talents have changed recently from a patch. You'd go to starter build. It would kind of just give you a recommended build for a starter. I actually use the starter build when I'm playing a new class because I'm usually more interested in making progress towards max level, learning the basics of a class, than getting caught up in the weeds with the talent points when I'm starting a new character. Don't feel bad about using a starter build or even looking for online builds. The same drop-down menu you can actually use to import loadouts from some of these websites like Wowhead or Icy Veins, Murloc.io. You would import the talent string here from those websites, name it, and then import. So we'll go ahead and grab one as an example. So I've pulled up Icy Veins. So right down here, this has single target talents for Frostfire Mage. I would go to export talents and it export string copied. So now here in the game, I would go to import, I'd paste that, type in Icy Veins, Frostfire, single target. So now I know where this build came from and what this build is about. So it didn't actually change anything because this character is only level 10 and doesn't actually have anything going on. As you level up, you would have a ton of talent points to put into all this. And actually, once you hit level 80, you would get a new tree here in the middle called your hero talents. You'll have a couple choices between which hero talent you want to focus in. Hero talents are, I would say, even easier to pick than your regular talents because you will get to take every hero talent that's available. There's a couple choice nodes, which would be like this one. This is a choice node. So for this one, you would get a choice between taking Time Walk or Temporal Realignment. And the hero talents would also have that. But you can create and save multiple loadouts. You could have one for single target, AoE, cleave. You could have as many builds as you want. There are many players that exclusively use builds that theory crafters have already perfected and posted onto these websites. And that's a great way to enjoy the game without needing to do homework. Okay, here I've switched over to my main for this season. So I'm going to pull up that same talents thing and you can see I have an M+ build and I have a raid build. Pretty sure I got both of these from Icy Veins, but there's of course Wowhead, and then there's other websites like Murloc.io and Archon.gg. There's plenty of places that you can find your builds from. I also recommend the class-specific Discords. They're a good resource. A lot of discussions and conversations going on in there. Not always productive, but they're happening regardless. Like I was talking about, you'll have a choice between different hero talent paths to take. I'm doing Sun Fury here, but Frostfire is also a choice for Fire Mage. Down here you have the Apex talent, which every spec tree has Apex talent at the bottom, and this is a spot where you can put 4 talent points into this, each one ranking it up a little bit more and making it stronger. For the most part, you're kind of gonna want to take these. There are probably some cases where people have been creative with their talent points in a way that they can make a strong build without it. But I think with the way they've designed it, you're pretty much always going to want to take them right now. But now we'll talk about PvP. Here in the bottom right of this talents, actually, you can see we have this little cross swords button, which you can toggle on and off. This will turn on War Mode, and War Mode is basically open world PvP. If you're in War Mode, you will get increased quest rewards and XP, and you'll also enable these here, which are PvP specific talents. So you'll have a list of these. As you level up, you'll unlock more of these. This character that I'm on is pretty much strictly PvE at the moment. I'm thinking this season I'm probably going to play Unholy Death Knight for PvP. But one thing to know about War Mode is it can be deactivated in any rest area, but to turn it on, you have to be in a major capital like your faction capital, or here in Silvermoon, I can actually turn it on. But I can only turn it off in an area that is considered a rest area. You can see these Z's coming out of my character frame here. I'm in a rested area. I'm in a major city. So I can turn it off here. But real quick, since we talked about rest areas, I'll cover them super quick. Capital cities, like I'm in Silvermoon right now, which is the main capital expansion hub here for Midnight. But, you know, Stormwind, Orgrimmar, Inns in general, capital cities, expansion hubs, these are going to be rested areas. A rested area is generally considered a safe area. If someone were to PvP you here, someone were to attack you here, these guards would attack them. Because this is supposed to be basically kind of, if you're in a rested area, it's like neutral safe area. That's not to say somebody won't feel like getting froggy and leaping on you. But if you are leveling and you log off in a rested area, you will build up what's called rested XP. And the way that this works is you bank it up for time that is spent logged off in these rested areas. And when you log back on and start questing, that banked XP will be consumed. So you'll be able to gain a lot of XP quickly. So this is a good thing to do if you have multiple characters that you plan on leveling up. Before you start working on the first one, park all the seconds in rested areas and log off there. That way they're at least building up that rested XP to speed up the process once you start with them. Now this does have a cap on it, so it's not like you can just take a level 80 character, log them out, and gain rested XP all the way up to level 90. It won't work like that, but it will help in little bursts. Next, we can take a look at our quest log and map. So the left side here is obviously the map, and the right side shows our quest log. This is quests that we have picked up. On the map, you can click points of interest to set a waypoint to them. So let's say I want to go here to Collegiate Calamity. This is a delve that we will talk about what delves are later. But if I select it, it puts that little pin on it, a little golden diamond. And now in the overworld, there's my pin. So if I follow that, it's going to take me to Collegiate Calamity. So I'm just going to go ahead and fly there. It's not very far, but it makes it easier to make your way around the world. Here it is. This is the entrance to Collegiate Calamity. So if you hold Control though, and click somewhere right there, let's do that, you can set a custom pin. So this pin is there on this spot that I've placed it, even though it's not a point of interest. I've still placed this pin right here. It was showing me up in the air there, but if you look here, you can see it's going to be down there. My pin leads me right here. But this is my destination reached, it even said. There's also this button in the top right of the map that can be used to set filters. Right now it's filtering some things out, but you can filter what icons show up on the map. If it's feeling a little bit cluttered for you, if you're looking for something and you can't see it because all the other crap, if you're targeting a specific point of interest, like maybe you just want to see local stories, which are basically side quests, I could get rid of all this other stuff and only show me the local stories. As for navigating the map, the top will show you your location from world to continent to region to zone. So if I want to zoom all the way out, what I'm going to do is right click on the map. It takes me up a level. And if I do that all the way, it takes me to the world. So there's multiple worlds. There's Draenor, Azeroth, Outland, Shadowlands. These three have to do with specific expansions. So Azeroth is the main world though. So I went to Azeroth. Here's all the different places and islands and continents in Azeroth. As you can see, I'm in the Eastern Kingdom, so I'm going to click that. Quel'Thalas. I'm in Quel'Thalas. And if I get even further, I'm in the Eversong Woods area. And then if I click Silvermoon map, I'm in the city of Silvermoon. And that's through left clicking. So right clicking and left clicking lets you go in and out levels. Here in the log, I can see my quests, and not all of them are actually active here. So I have a few here, but if I don't or do want something to appear in the objectives list, I can click this little check mark here. So if I don't want this Voidspire raid quest to show up, I would uncheck that. But if I do want it, I click it and it shows up. This is a campaign quest. I'll be completing this soon, but you can do that with any quest. If there's something that you don't really care that much about or you want to do later, take it off of there. And also, if I have multiple quests that I'm tracking at once here, but I want my pin to point me to a certain one, I would actually click it here. See how it's like got this golden glow to it now? That means it's my active tracked quest. So I have a pin now showing me I need to do the Voidspire raid. In order to do that, it's gonna show me to the nearest way to get to Voidstorm, which is where the Voidspire is. So I'd have have to go through this portal. It would take me to Voidstorm. We're not going to do that right now, though. Let's say you have a quest that you accidentally picked up and you don't actually want to do it. You could right-click it, and you could go to Abandon Quest. Now, if you abandon a quest that you've made some progress in, you're going to lose that progress. But if you just don't want to track it anymore, you want to keep your progress. Let's say you've for building the Void Forge, let's say I've gotten 2 of the 3 of these that I need. Instead of abandoning it, I'm just going to untrack it. It just takes it off of there. So, I'll come back to that later. It's still in my logbook, not going to lose progress in it or anything. I actually do want to track that though. You can make your map go full screen like this. Another little trick, if you hit Shift M, you can have this little map too. It's like a little transparent, tinier map, but there's a tab here called the Events tab. You click that, it shows you what's going on. Usually it's dependent on the area that you're in. I'm in Silver Moon. This is the Midnight expansion, so all this stuff is going on. Dormarian Assault is always here in Voidstorm. This is happening like every 30 minutes. Prey is over here. Abundance is something that actually moves locations. This will tell me the event schedule. Right now, Abundance is located in Eversong Woods, which I'm actually in. So right down here, Abundant Harvest. Time left 1 hour. At 6 p.m., it's going to move to Herondar, which is here. And then March 22nd, it's going to move to Eversong Woods, then to Voidstorm, then to Zulaman. It travels around, but I can use this Events tab to keep track of the events that I might care about doing. And last, there's the map legend. So the map legend is just going to explain to you what all these symbols mean. These are all the different type of quests. Campaign quests are important story ones. Important quests unlock features and rewards or teach you about major mechanics. These blue quests says meta quests, but they're basically weekly repeatable quests are going to be blue ones like this. But if it has this spiky thing around it, it's a little bit more important. You'll usually get a really good limited resource from doing these ones as well. Local stories, they're side quests. You got the 3 dots. It's a quest that you're already in progress, you're already doing. And then the question mark means you are done with that quest. You can turn it in. And then there's a bunch of other stuff here, like this explains world quests, world boss, bonus objective, event. If there's something on the map you don't know what it means, it'll probably be in here. I have some extra symbols that aren't here, but that's from add-ons, and we'll talk about add-ons later, but add-ons are actually really powerful. These little skulls are telling me where certain enemies are, like where they can spawn at. Doesn't mean they're there right now. Also, if I hover over, it's telling me what they drop and stuff. That's from the Handy Notes Midnight. Same thing with the chest. It's telling me where there's a chest that I can loot, and if there is extra stuff you need to do, it'll say that as well. Like this peculiar cauldron in Herondar requires 150 crystallized resin fragments to open it. Okay, next we're going to look at the collections tabs. The horseshoe button or Shift P will open this up, and there's a bunch of different tabs here. So we've got mounts, pets, toys, heirlooms, appearances, and campsites. We'll start with mounts. Mounts are a huge collector's item in WoW that can be earned from many sources, and they're super useful for traversing the massive World of Warcraft faster than a snail's pace. No offense to snail mounts. So this isn't actually showing all of my mounts, but it's showing all the mounts that this character can use. There are certain mounts that are character specific, but we have flying mounts like this guy here. This mount can fly. So can the squirrel mount that I'm on right now. See, he can fly. But there's also ground mounts like these, which can only go on the ground. They cannot fly. And then there's also aquatic mounts. Now, aquatic mounts can sometimes also be ground mounts, or could be like this guy. This mount only works in the water, but like the brown war otter, this works on ground as well. But what's nice about aquatic mounts is they actually can move a little bit faster in the water, which flying and normal ground mounts are pretty slow in the water. But while playing this game, you're most commonly going to be using flying mounts just because they're a lot more versatile as far as traveling around goes. Gives you a lot of speed and freedom while traveling. In some zones and in PvP, you can be restricted to ground movement. So that might be a good place to show off some of your ground mounts as if you're doing PvP. But there's over 1,000 mounts in the game now. So for collectors players, this may even be the sole reason they're playing the game. It's just to get that mount collection. Next we have pets. There are non-combat pets that are just summoned to look cool and follow you around, and then there are battle pets like these guys. The whole battle pet system is kind of similar to like a Pokemon style turn-based battle where you can engage with both NPC battle trainers or do some PvP with battle pets. And even beyond battling, some collectors are just about catching them all type deal. But it's pretty similar to Pokemon where there's different types and they have weaknesses and strength against other types and different types of abilities. Some abilities will buff you or debuff your enemy. I will cover player housing later, but for those interested, Blizzard has made it known their intent to add mounts and pets into the housing system. So this kind of gives collectors and housing enthusiasts a whole other avenue of displaying their collections, with the potential of creating whole like exhibits or habitats or battle arenas if you're into that for both your mounts and pets. Next, we have the toy box. And toys are just kind of fun knickknacks and doodads with the variety of uses. It's kind of hard to even explain. There's like, some of them are just basically reskins of a Hearthstone. If you don't know, a Hearthstone is something we'll talk about later, but it's a teleport to an inn basically, and you can decide what inn that is by talking to the innkeeper. But like this thing, it's just a different version of a Hearthstone, it has a different effect. So, and then we've got a desk in a box. It lets you bring out a little desk for RP purposes or just to be funny. Etheric Brand Morpher. Summon an ethereal transmorpher that can change your appearance for 1 hour to Brand Bondsbeard, who's kind of a meme character at this point. Some of them let you have water guns. Some of them let you play music. Some of them will give you special effects. There's a ton of different weird, random, and funny things you can do with toys. This one's just a cooking pot if I want to do some cooking. But you can bust them out and surprise people with, or just bust out your toys when you're killing some time waiting for a group. Starting a toy party in a busy capital can lead to many players joining in, actually. You can have some wild and wacky antics going on in the middle of a city if a bunch of people start playing with their toys. Next up, we have heirlooms. And these have kind of fallen by the wayside in usefulness. They were kind of meant to be scaling gear that you can use while leveling without needing to constantly change out your gear. But you acquire gear at such a fast pace now that it's hardly worth using them, I would say, honestly. Unless you're just not getting a specific slot to drop, like a headpiece. For some reason, you're not getting a headpiece. You could use one of these to just fill that slot. But as you can see, they will scale up to a certain point. This one will scale only up to level 29. After 29, you're going to replace it anyways. But you can purchase these and then you can level them up so that they will scale higher. But it is kind of expensive at this point. I wouldn't really bother with doing that. If you just want to get them for their appearance, though, I think that's probably the best way to use it nowadays. Like, let's say you just like the appearance of these shoulders. Oh god, those are ugly. Jeez. But yeah, those are heirlooms. They exist. How useful they are at this point, I couldn't tell you. Blizzard has not really given them much attention in a while, so do what you will with that. Next, we have appearances. Whenever you collect a piece of gear, you will unlock its appearance. So you have this collection. You can see there's 61 pages of helm appearances. These are cloth helm appearances. Some of these appearances are actually specific to mage, like tier sets, which we'll talk about later. These are all the cloth headset appearances. Some of them are cosmetic, so you can wear them regardless of your armor type. But whenever you pick up a piece of gear, you get the appearance. It is possible to lose an appearance, like let's say you get a piece of gear from a dungeon and it's like a bind on equip. So you would get that appearance if you sold it or equipped it. Now, let's say you got it to drop, but instead of selling it or equipping it, you trade it to somebody else, you wouldn't get the appearance in that case. The person that you trade it to would get it as long as they equip it or sell it. Or if you sold it on the auction house as well, you would not get the appearance. But there's a ton of appearances in the game, as you can see. 114 pages of back appearances. And for many players, Transmog is the true end game. So if you ever want to see what something would look like on your character, you can hold control. It'll give you this little magnifying glass. And then left click. This will bring up the dressing room window and it will give you a preview of what your character would look like wearing that. Pretty cool. Same thing works for items in your bags. So let's see how this cloak looks. Oh, there it is. I want to see how this helm looks. Oh, that actually looks pretty cool. Oh, it gives you a ponytail. Nice. But collecting tons of cool appearances and making your own outfits is truly endgame for a lot of characters. They just want to make cool looking characters, and I'm here for it. So by default, your character will just be wearing whatever gear they have equipped. But by traveling to a transmog vendor or NPC, you can actually change the appearance of what you're wearing. Let's find a guard. So if you were to find a guard and ask them to lead you to a transmogrifier, they will mark it on your map, mini-map, see right there. So I know that this way will lead me to a transmogrifier. This is Second Identity. This is a transmog vendor. They usually look like these ethereal dudes right here. Purple bandage guys. I want to transmogrify my gear. Okay, so once you've collected an appearance, it is then available for you to use as transmog. You can transmogrify whatever you're wearing to the appearance of other items. So let's reset. These are some outfits that I've set up, and I can equip them. I can even take these buttons and put them on bars and equip them whenever I want. You could purchase additional outfit slots and create as many outfits as you want. Each outfit slot you purchase does cost additional gold. So by default, your character will just be wearing whatever gear you have equipped. But by traveling to the transmogrifier, you can purchase and set up outfits in your appearance collection. And it's kind of expensive on a new character because it costs gold. As you level up, gold does start coming in a lot quicker. So once you purchase and set up an outfit, no matter what gear you acquire and equip, your character's look will stay the same. So no matter what I do, what kind of changes I make to my gear, I've set up this transmog outfit for my character. So they're going to stay looking like this unless I change that. You can also set up outfits that will just show you what you're equipping. So the transmog system is pretty versatile as well. Let's say you really like seeing your character's face when you're in town, but when you're out and about, you like to see whatever helmet you've got equipped. There is an option to hide a gear slot here, and then I can set every other one to ignore. So I'll save this outfit, and then if I go to situations, this is where it gets interesting. Only in rested areas will this outfit apply. So now you can see I'm not wearing my sunglasses anymore, even though that's a normal part of this outfit. So if I leave a rested area, my sunglasses will come back on. And whenever I come into town, the sunglasses will come off. This will apply to any headpiece. So if I had a helmet on, when I come back into any rested area, then it will take off only my helm and it will ignore everything else. So even if I have multiple outfits set up for different situations, like out in the open world, I've got one. Let's say I have a different outfit that's set up that only pops up when I raid or do dungeons. So if I go do a dungeon and I'm in my, full armor where I'm covered head to toe, and then I come back to town, because that outfit that ignores all my regular slots, so it won't change anything there. The only thing it'll do is hide my helm. So when I come back into town, I'll be wearing my raid outfit, but I just won't have a helmet on. And it will be the same if I have an open world set that I wear when I'm out questing that has a helmet. And then I come back. Instead of switching anything that I'm wearing, it'll just take off my helm only because it's ignoring the rest of the gear. But the situations tab can be really cool for setting up multiple outfits because it's not just in town and in rest areas. You could be more specific about house, world, delves, dungeons. You could be specific about if you're swimming. It only changes when you're swimming. You have a whole swimming outfit. Or you could have outfits that change depending on which spec you're playing. Or even which form you are. If you're a Worgen or a Drakthir, you could have a specific transmog that only shows up when you're in your Drakthir form or your Visage form or your Worgen form or your human form. It's pretty nifty. But if you don't want to do specific items, you can also look at entire sets. These are already pre-set up to look nice together, but I much prefer mixing and matching. Besides going to this location to do that, there's also some mounts that you can use, like the Expedition Yak, which you might see a lot of people use, that has a Transmog NPC on it, the Grizzly Hills Packmaster. This mount also lets you use the Anvil and the Transmog as well. Ethereal Transmogrifier toy. This will every once in a while come back to the training post. Definitely suggest to buy this if you don't have either of the mounts. You can actually summon him and transmog wherever you're at. Very useful, especially if you are the type to change your looks on the fly. I think there's also a consumable item that you can buy off the auction house, but it costs gold and it's consumed on use, and I don't even think it lasts long enough to really set up a transmog, so I don't really recommend that, but it's in the auction house if you want it. Back to our collection journal. After the Appearances rabbit hole, the last tab is the Campsites tab, which features all the Warband login screens you have or can unlock. This is a minor detail, but it is pretty cool for setting up some scenes of your favorite characters when you're logging in. Campsites you already have unlocked will appear in color, and grayed out ones have not been unlocked yet. You can mouse over each one to see what it needs to be earned for your account. And if you ever want to change or set up some campsites, you can do so right from the login screen with the Campsites button up top. You can set up multiple campsites and even use it as a way to organize your characters. Next, let's go over the adventure guide. You can access this by clicking this red book or hitting Shift J. The Journeys tab will showcase your progress with Warband reputations and additional systems like your Delve progression, and in Midnight, the Prey progression system. Pretty straightforward. You can click on it, take a look at what you've unlocked. The Traveler's Log shows your progress towards the trading post. This is a monthly rotating system that offers usually cosmetic rewards for the trader's tender currency. Currency is given out each month, but by completing tasks listed here, you can earn additional traders tenders and monthly capstone rewards. There will be a bar here with milestones. As you hit each milestone, you'll unlock some additional tender, and when you get it all filled all the way up, you'll unlock whatever that month's capstone cosmetic reward is. There's only a certain amount of tenders you can earn during each month, so make sure to save your tenders for trading post items that you like the most. One nice feature of the trading post is if there's an item that you particularly like and cannot afford it that month, you can actually save it here into this slot. So right now I have these Golden Clockwork Doomfist is in here at the moment. I'll go ahead and purchase this so I can show you how it works when you lock something into this spot. So now that I have that, I can fill it with something else. So I like this Ensemble Elaborate Ruby Mage Weave, but I only have 1800 tender. I could buy it, but I kind of want to save up and see what's available next month. So I'm just going to take this and put it into this spot here. Are you sure you want to replace your current frozen item? The existing frozen item may no longer be available. That's okay because I already purchased it. So now, every month, this is going to stay here until I purchase it or replace it with another item. Like I said, you can only get so much Trader's Tender every month, but every so often, things will make their way back into the Trader's Post, and it seems usually in February, there's usually a really big one with lots of old items in it. One thing I would recommend keep an eye out for is the Ethereal Transmogger Fire Toy. If that pops up, that's a pretty good one to grab, especially if you like to transmog on the fly. You can find these trading posts in major hubs and capitals. This is the one in Silvermoon, but of course it's available in Stormwind or Grimoire. Next tab is the suggested content, and this really just suggests content to do. I've never actually really used this feature before, but I guess it's there to kind of guide new players. Next we have the dungeon and raid tabs, both pretty similar. These can be useful if you're looking to see what specific loot a dungeon or raid contains. So let's say I want to see what loot is in Windrunner Spire. I'm going to take a look at the loot. Right now I'm looking at all classes. Let's look at my specific stuff that I want to see what trinkets they have here, because I already know I want the Emberwing trinket. This Emberwing feather drops from Emberdawn. So let's put this back to all. What else does Emberdawn have? Oh, this pretty nice looking sword. But yeah, see, I can see everything that Emberdawn has, whether I'm looking at appearances or just the stats of the items. It's pretty nifty. If I go back to Windrunner Spire right here at the overview, I can go show on map and see where to find Windrunner Spire. So Windrunner Spire is in Quel'Thalas in Eversong Woods. This is the actual map of Windrunner Spire. So I'm going to right click to back out one. So I know it's a dungeon here in Eversong Woods. Right there, looking for the dungeon symbol. You can also check bosses' abilities here. There is an overview, kind of gives you the basics, but if you want to see the specific abilities, you click here. A little bit more helpful. If you want to see the model of the boss, of course the loot we were already talking about, and you can add some filters onto that to get more specific things. Very useful. This is available for every dungeon and raid in the game. I'm gonna go back to home. So these are the Midnight Dungeons. I could go to current season. These are going to be the dungeons for the season. The Mythic Plus dungeons will be running. But I can look at each specific expansion to see what dungeons it has, what loot drops from every boss, where the dungeon is, and the same thing with the raids. Current season raids, we've got Voidspire and Dream Rift, we've got March On and Quel'Thalas. And if I go to Midnight, well actually, you would say, hold on, that's not a raid. Midnight, it shows you the bosses. So you can look at the world bosses and see what they can drop for you. Pretty cool. And of course, if you just want to see where something is, this is where this raid is located. It's in Eastern Kingdoms, Quoth of Loss, Void Storm, Void Spire. So if I back out, oh, look. The green is for raids, the blue is for dungeons. This is the Void Spire, and that's the dungeon and raid tabs. The last tab in the adventure guide is the tutorial tab, which, if you're returning to the game and feel overwhelmed with your pre-existing characters and full bags, you can use the catch-up experience here that takes you through a scenario meant to slowly remind you of how the game works without overwhelming you. And it will even end with you getting some updated gear to jump into the most recent content more prepared. If you start this and it feels like it's all coming back, you do not have to finish it. You can just return to the game without having to go through the entire thing. Next, you can check the achievements menu with the Y key or this orange achievement button right here. And this will show all your account and character achievements, of which there are many. There's also a tab for guild achievements right here at the bottom, and character stats. This can be pretty interesting to see what your specific character has been up to. Next, we'll look at the group finder. You can get to the group finder by pressing the I key or the green monster's eye down here. This is what you use to queue for content with others, as well as forming groups for content like raids, Mythic Dungeons, PvP, and even open world content that works better with a group. In the dungeons and raids tab, you can queue up for follower dungeons, which are dungeons run with AI. Pretty good for learning, especially if you're new to tanking or healing. There are specific dungeons, which you can enter in either normal or heroic versions. You can queue up for multiple specific ones or just a single one. Random dungeons, midnight, and this is just going to be all the midnight dungeons. You could randomly enter one normal, and there's random heroic Midnight Season 1. The random queues will be faster than the specific queues because it will just throw you in with the very first available group. Where specific, it's looking for people that are queued up for a specific dungeon. The different difficulties for dungeons and raids in WoW is LFR, which is looking for raid. This is the easiest difficulty of raid. There's normal mode for raids and dungeons, heroic for raids and dungeons, mythic for raids and dungeons, and then dungeons will have Mythic Plus, which is an infinitely scaling challenge mode in which group will run dungeon in a timed mode. If you complete the dungeon in time, your key will upgrade to a more difficult, higher level. Mythic Plus 2 is the lowest, and it goes up until you reach your limit. We'll cover more of that later on in the game, but raids only have one difficulty that can be queued in, and that is LFR or the Raid Finder. So when you go to Raid Finder, this is the easiest mode for a raid that you can queue for. It's going to be the current raids that you can queue up for, and it's usually not the whole thing. Usually it'll be kind of breaking up the raid into chunks. LFR is typically much easier, but sometimes the swarm of uncoordinated randoms in these raid groups will lead to chaos and difficulty if they cannot wrap their head around some basic mechanics of an encounter. You'd use the pre-made groups section to form most endgame content like Mythic Dungeons and all raids other than LFR. So you would go to pre-made. If you are forming a raid group or looking to join a raid group, you go to raids, midnight for current ones. Legacy is for older content, so you can group up for some of that, but it's not always necessary. But if you, let's say you wanted to do a normal or heroic raid, you'd go to pre-made groups, raids, midnight. You could start your own group, and then you'd post, and you could accept applications, or you could find a group. So I'm looking here. These are all the raid groups being posted right now. Sometimes they'll have notes and names to let you know this is the composition they're looking for. 2 tanks, 3 healers, 10 DPS. They already are not quite in their own ratio. They've got an extra healer, and they don't have enough DPS yet, but it's the group finder, so, you know, just because they say something in the title doesn't mean that's what you're going to get into. But besides raids, you could also go to dungeons. Let's find a group for dungeons. And here you would, right now, currently, the season has started, but only Mythic Zeros are open. So after the reset, Mythic Plus will open, which will be +2 all the way as high as people can reach. So right now it's kind of slim pickings. People are running zeros, but starting soon, there's going to be all kinds of different numbers here, different difficulties, and people are going to be constantly posting groups. You can apply to a group like this, sign up. I'm not actually doing a dungeon right now, but if I wanted to sign up, I'm a DPS, I'm a mage. I can look at this group, see they have a tank. They've got 2 DPS. They still need a healer and a DPS. Oh, see, just filled up right now. chill clear. Probably going to be a chill experience. Not always the case though. This is the group finder, so you never know what you're actually going to get into, despite what they may have posted. As a new player, there is an unfortunate restriction that may prevent you from starting and posting your own group. Usually they want you to activate the Blizzard 2-factor authentication. This is kind of annoying, but it's, it at least encourages you to have a little bit more security with your account. So the next tab of the group finder is the PvP tab, and it features all the PvP modes that you can queue up for, including quick matches, rated modes. Yep, new season starting. As you can see, there's multiple different rated modes. Solo, 2v2s, 3v3s, 10v10. There's Training Grounds, which is basically PvP against bots. This is a good way to kind of, I guess, maybe learn the maps a little bit, get a little bit acquainted with how PvP works if you want to before jumping into the actual thing. Or, of course, pre-made groups. If you want to get in the group finder for arenas, find group, start group. If you want to do the same for battlegrounds or just custom groups. Let's see what's going on in custom. Here we go, custom PvP Warmode on. These guys are looking for Sparks. Anyways, this is where you're going to join or make PvP groups. Next tab is the Mythic Plus Dungeons tab, which will show your progress in the seasonal M Plus dungeons so you can keep track of your best scores and your weekly vault, which we will go over later on in the endgame activity screen. Before we move on from the group finder though, it is worth noting that you can queue for multiple things at a time. So if I were doing some PvP, let's say I'm just doing quick match stuff, I could queue up for skirmish, brawl, and a battleground at the same time. Same thing with like LFR. If I wanted to queue up for multiple wings of LFR, I would queue up for one, wait a few seconds, queue up for the next one. When you do enter a queue, you will have a little eye, just like this little green eye that you can hover over that tells you estimated time and may have some information on how the queue is coming along. Let's talk just a little bit more about PvP. There is World PvP gear, Honor gear, and the best gear is Conquest gear. The PvP section in Silvermoon is just over here. It's also where the dummies are if you want to come hit dummies and practice. So just over here is the PvP vendors. We've got the Elite Conquest Quartermaster. We've got the Competitor's Recipes, Warmode Quartermaster, Elite Conquest Quartermaster, Conquest Quartermaster, Honor Quartermaster right here. So in PvP, there's World Gear, Honor Gear, and the best gear is Conquest gear. And these are important because even though they have lower item levels, they have some special text on them. So if I hover over this, you can see right there where it says Equip increases item level to a minimum of 276 in arenas, battlegrounds, and war mode. That's some Honor gear. Let's look at the Conquest gear. We'll have something similar but better. Equip increases item level to a minimum of 289 in arenas, battlegrounds, and war mode. So they have that special text that says it scales in PvP content. Typically, each piece will also provide versatility, which is a very important PvP stat. World gear can be earned from PvP world quests and is decent for starting, but not as strong as Honor gear and Conquest in instance PvP. So to buy these, you will need to earn Honor and Conquest currencies, which of course are earned by playing PvP and rated PvP modes. Honor gear is generally what you will want to start with, and then over time as you earn Conquest, you'll want to spend it to get fully kitted out into Conquest gear. We talked a little bit about War Mode earlier, which allows you to PvP in the open world and get extra XP and resources while doing it. There are specific PvP world quests and even designated PvP areas meant for faction combat to take place, like Slayer's Rise in the Voidstorm. So if I look at the map, here's Voidstorm, but up at the top is Slayer's Rise. These are world PvP quests. Look, subdue creatures or kill players, shoot void missiles or kill players. And if you look at the gear that you'll earn from doing this quest, increases item level to 263 in arenas, battlegrounds, and war mode. So this whole area up at the north part of Slayer Rise is a PvP area. So a lot of stuff will happen here, like these world quests. There's actually NPCs that will give you more specific quests to earn PvP resources like Honor and Conquest. And there's also resource crate traps, which a lot of people will form big groups and farm these for Conquest. It's a slow but easy way to earn Conquest. Basically, you'll fly around with a big group and travel between different zones following resource traps and swarming them as soon as you can. Every once in a while, you will run into the opposite faction doing the same and may have some giant battles over it as well. Besides world PvP, there are arenas and battlegrounds where you can queue to enter a PvP instance to battle in it. For arenas, there's 2v2s and 3v3s that you would queue up with a teammate made in the group finder, where you enter a confined arena map and fight it out. This is the most intense form of PvP where every decision matters. I'm no PvP expert, but it may as well be a whole other game when compared to PvE. Your opponents are real people, not AI, so even though at a high level, the PvP dance may feel somewhat predictable as you learn it, you never really know what your opponent might do compared to a boss that's going to cycle through the same exact movesets every time. Trading defensives and cooldowns, faking out the enemy with hard casts, lining up CCs with your teammates to control the enemy healer, and using the terrain to line of sight your enemies so that they cannot target you. It's fast-paced and has a steep learning curve, because not only do you have to learn how your class works, you also have to learn how the other classes work so you know how to play with them and against them. Probably the most popular rated PvP mode in the game is called Solo Shuffle. Right here, Solo Shuffle. You'll queue up and you'll be placed into a 3v3 arena with multiple rounds, 2 DPS and 1 healer on each team. And there's Battlegrounds and Epic Battlegrounds, ranging from 10v10 to even as high as 40v40 in some maps, which is crazy. These are exciting, but since the teams are so big, your individual actions won't have quite the same weight as in arenas. There are some cool rewards to earn through PvP, starting with your honor level right here. As you can see, at honor level 10, I will get the Honorable Pennant toy. The honor level is an account-wide system that has some cool unlocks, and also every season you can earn vicious mounts. You will have a bar to fill that once filled you will unlock the current season's vicious mount, and if you keep playing, you'll be able to fill the bar up again to earn what's called a vicious saddle, which can be exchanged for previous season's vicious mounts. This can be repeated for even more additional saddles, but as soon as the new season starts, you do have to fill it up that first time to earn that season's mount before you can go back to earning more saddles. And there are also certain PvP rating thresholds to reach that will unlock cool rewards like Transmog, titles, and special weapon appearance effects. Next, the guild tab can be opened with the J key or by clicking the banner button down here. As for guilds, each character can be in a single guild, but you can join as many communities as you want. Finding a guild that runs the content you are most interested in is a great way to make sure you have chill people to play with if you're nervous about queuing with randoms who may be less understanding of a new person learning. I will go ahead and plug my guild, Hardcast, that I help run, and we like keeping a fun and low stress environment that's friendly to people learning the game, no matter what type of content they enjoy. That's not to say we don't get sweaty from time to time, but we do like to keep in mind that we are playing for fun. So consider joining our guild, even if it is just a stepping stone on your WoW journey. With that said, many guilds nowadays are mostly active in Discords, so the in-game guild chats may not always be popping off. But the first button on the top left will be your guild if you have joined one, followed by any communities you may have joined. You can select them and switch between them to easily chat. There's a Find Community button, which you can filter based on your needs. I'm looking for an English, social, and leveling community. Hit search, and I've already got some. This only has one person in it, so not so interested in that. Casual garbage, though. 18 and up, social community. Dive on into the trash heap and make friends with your fellow casuals. So there's plenty of communities out there. There's also the option to make your own community, or you could look through the guild finder. Same deal. I'm looking for social and leveling English speaking guild. And then you can see here, some of these are bigger than others. Within your guild, you can also check the bulletin to see if there's any events that have been posted. This may or may not be here. Like I said, a lot of guilds nowadays like to just use Discord for all of their management. There's some other tabs so you can see the roster of people in the guild. You can filter by achievement points, professions, if you're looking for a specific person in the guild to see if they can craft you something. I know I'm going to need somebody that does inscription, so I'm going to look here and see who has inscription. So we've got a couple people that have inscription. We have the perks section. These perks typically you will be able to get with every guild, but as your guild does things together, you'll earn guild achievements and you'll be able to purchase extra things. And then there's the info tab where you can see, oh, these are the guild challenges. You can do guild challenges every week to get extra gold for the guild. You can see the guild news to see what's going on, message of the day, guild information. You can see what people have been looting. Guild achievement here, challenging, complete 50 guild challenges we did recently. Next up, bottom left, we have our chat box and we have our social button here. You can hit the social button to bring up your friends list, or you can hit O. And here we have our contacts. These are people that you have friended, whether it's a specific character of theirs or if it's a BattleNet friend. So you can see BattleNet friends. If you right click, you can have some options there This button here on the side will invite them to your party or request to join theirs depending on if they're already in a party. You can go to recent allies. This will show people that you've played with recently, whether you were in LFR together or you happen to do a Mythic Dungeon with them. There's also recruit a friend, which you can recruit some people, and if they play the game for a while, you will get a little bit of rewards out of it. Look at these. You've got a couple different rewards here. Oh, that's pretty cool looking. If you get a friend to play for 3 months, you get this. Pretty sweet. We have who, which will, if you hit refresh, show you what people are in what zones. This is kind of letting you see the people around you. So you can see these people are doing Delves, they're in Eversong, Herondar, Silvermoon, but you can also filter it by guild. So let's refresh. These are the different people in the guilds they're in, or race, if you want to be like that about it. The raid tab is where you would go to change the composition of each group in a raid. Raids are made up of groups of 5, and usually you would want to set it up so that there's a tank, a healer, and 3 DPS. Although since a raid usually only needs 2 tanks, many of the groups are going to be filled up with 4 DPS and a single healer. This can be useful for setting up groups in raid encounters where you may need to split up the raid or assign certain members certain jobs. We also have a raid tab here. This is where your raid lockouts are going to show up. We'll talk about it a little bit more later, but you start a group with your guild and you do some of the raid. Let's say you don't finish it. It'll be here with the option to extend the lockout. So what that means is every Tuesday there's going to be server maintenance and a reset. If you were to extend your lockout before that reset happens, you will keep it, so you'll keep that instance until the next week. So let's say my guild gets all the way to the final boss, but we don't beat it, but we were close. So instead of going through the entire raid next week, we could extend the lockout before Tuesday reset. I would go here and click extend lockout, and then the next week we would still be in that same spot. This could be good if you're just looking to finish that boss off, but it could also be a bad thing because if you're extending that lockout, you're not killing all the bosses before. So you're missing out on loot that way, but it just kind of depends on your situation. Click raid info here. See, this is the lockouts. So here in the raid tab, you can go to raid info here to see my instances. So in LFR, I've done this and this. In normal raid, I've killed 3 bosses. Now, if next week I wanted to keep this instance and start at Velgor and Ezorak instead of killing the first 3 again, I could extend my raid lockout. This means next week when I go into Voidspar normal, the first 3 bosses are still going to be dead, so I won't have to re-clear that. This could be a good thing if I'm just interested in fighting what I have, killing the bosses I haven't yet, but could also be a bad thing because I'm losing out on potential loot from the first 3. But it will also have all your other lockouts for, let's say, if you've done a certain dungeon and it's like a weekly lockout for it, it'll be here too. So you can go here to see when your lockouts, how much longer they have till they expire, and you can extend them if you want to. Then we have quick join. You have friends that are in a group or queued up for something. Like let's say you have a buddy that's queued up for LFR. In this quick join tab, you could request to join their queue. And that's a pretty fun little feature, although I've never actually used it personally. Back to the chat box we mentioned. This is customizable and a quick way to communicate. There's a voice channel button as well. I've never actually used this, and when I did try using it, it would not work for me. So not sure what's up with that, but usually I do most of my talking with buddies through either whispers, sometimes the guild chat if we're all in game, but usually I do most of my talking in this game through Discord. But this is here if you want to try and use it. But we also have the default text tab, which give you general chat, which as you can see has a lot of things going on in it. There's trade chat. There's a lot of trade chat talking. Who knows what the hell they're talking. Look at this. This is typical trade chat. Actually, my character is specifically not gender fluid, though my cat form is kind of, I can't even say this. Joe Mama is so oily she can deep fry catfish on her back. Okay, that's trade chat. That's pretty typical trade chat stuff going on. Which you can filter that out or put it into its own separate tab here. Here's the combat log where you see if you're fighting something, what happens to you specifically, you can click that button. If you right click though, you can go into edit mode to move the box around. You could rename these tabs. You could create new tabs. You can change your font size. You can make the background darker. Go to settings, you can decide these are the different tabs. Oh, here's the different tabs, general and combat. These are the two I have. So if you go to general, I can actually go through these, click on everything that I want to be in here. I'm not going to do this right now, but typically I would put trade chat in its own little thing so I don't constantly see people talking in trade chat. A lot of the time it's really stupid shit. But you can make multiple tabs here for specific stuff that you care about. Like, let's say you just want to see loot. You could put a little loot tab here. You click it and you're only seeing item loot. Good way to keep track of drops going on and stuff. However you want to do it, it's pretty customizable. When you are chatting here, there's different chats that you can talk into. Like, if you're just typing default here, it's going to say. So only people around you are going to see that, actually. If I yell something, it's going to yell it. If I whisper, whispering is something you can do to talk to specific people, private messages. This is slipping into the DMs. If I want to whisper this guy, I do whisper. Tell him, blah, 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 blah. I'm not actually going to talk to him right now. But this is deciding what you're saying something into. It also shows you the emotes, voice emotes, languages. There are languages in this game. If you type in common, everyone can read it. Or I could switch to draconic, so only certain people will be able to understand what I'm saying. It's going to look like gibberish to other people. If you click on somebody and then right-click their nameplate, you will get some other options. You can set a marker on them. You can set them as your focus, add them as a friend, invite them to your party, whisper them, which is your DMs. You can inspect their gear. So now I can look at what's he wearing. And you can also use this to find out what their transmog is, because he got some pretty cool looking shoulders. Now, this shows me the stats of his shoulders and what he's really wearing, but it says right there, Transmogrified 2, Prideful Gladiators, Copper Skin Spalders. So if I want to find out somebody's transmog because I like it, I could inspect them and then hover over the things to see what it is. I can also compare achievements. I could open up a trade window with him and give him something or offer him something. This is something you can do after you've run a dungeon with somebody. If they drop something that you need or vice versa, you can open up trade if they want to. You could set to follow if you're lazy or have to step away but don't want to fall apart from the group. Challenge them to a duel or a pet battle. Copy their character name if you want to /whisper them as well, or if you want to invite them to your guild. Or you could copy their Raider.io URL, which you could use on Raider.io, the website. Not sure if I mentioned it yet, but there is the minimap here and the calendar. If you want to access the calendar, you can do it from the guild menu like I showed you earlier, or you can click here. This is the calendar. You can see Tuesday. Usually a lot of stuff happens on Tuesday because that's when server maintenance is and there's usually downtime. But as you can see, there's some things are happening on Tuesday. Quite a few things. Next, I'll cover the very basics of professions, which you can hit with this cross, hammer, and pickaxe here, or you can hit K. Opens up your professions menu. So cooking, fishing, and archaeology are universal professions that are available to all characters. These are simpler professions. They don't have advanced skill trees, and if I'm being honest, archaeology specifically is pretty much a dead profession. While there is old content you can do and some cool stuff you can unlock through it, it has not been improved or added to in quite some time. Fishing and cooking, while simpler than the other main professions, still receive new recipes, new fish, new meals. Every expansion, there's new cooking and fishing stuff going on. So it's definitely worth learning and engaging in these if they interest you. As for the primary professions, you can only choose 2 primary professions to have. There are 2 categories. There's crafting professions and there's gathering professions. The 3 gathering professions are skinning, herbalism, and mining. These are easier to get into than crafting professions since they revolve around gathering resources from the world. These raw resources can then be sold or refined for crafters who will use them to make new items. There are 8 crafting professions to choose from: alchemy, blacksmithing, enchanting, engineering, inscription, jewel crafting, leatherworking, and tailoring. These all have crafts they can produce such as armor, weapons, potions, profession tools, and a bunch of other stuff. While leveling and new to the game, I would recommend starting with double gathering, and later on, if you are interested in crafting, you can forget one of those 2 and pick up a crafting profession to start slowly learning. I probably played this game for over a year before I really actually tried learning this system myself. I mentioned tools, and from the profession menu, if you were to select the profession window, this is my alchemy profession. Let's click the alchemy button here. This is going to open up my alchemy menu. If I were to click here on this filter button, I can switch between other expansions version of alchemy, because usually Each expansion is going to have its own version of that profession. But since I have alchemy as one of my primary professions, I can only learn alchemy in all of them. So these are my two primary professions. For every expansion, I can only do alchemy and tailoring unless I forget them or replace them with a different one. So up here in the top right, you can see I have some accessories and a tool. These are my alchemy accessories. I have a chemist cap and an apron, and my tool here is the mixing rod. And there's the same thing for tailoring. Got my needle set, my robe, and my snippers. These are for profession tools and accessories, and these will give you bonuses to your crafting and gathering. See, resourcefulness, crafting speed, +5 midnight tailoring skill. They each will provide a different kind of bonus. And if you're min-maxing, you might have multiple sets. Like this one gives you extra resourcefulness, which has a chance of not consuming some consumables that are needed when crafting something. There's also multi-craft, which will give you a chance of crafting extra things from the same amount of ingredients. So in this window, you can also see the specializations tab at the bottom. Now, tailoring and alchemy have their own talent trees specific to professions. This started in Dragonflight, so professions before Dragonflight expansion are simpler than this. But after, you have these trees with skill points that you earn. But the specializations will increase your crafting and gathering abilities. If you keep at it, you will be able to unlock every single thing in these trees. It's not a question of one or the other. It's a question of what you're going to focus on first. With this character, for my guild, I'm specifically focusing on making flasks for the group. This is a consumable that we use in raids and dungeons. So I focused hard into fluent in flasks and a little bit here as well in alchemical mastery. This gives me a little bit of extra resourcefulness. So over time, you'll be able to fully learn every spec and max it all out, but just be careful with the order that you're taking your initial knowledge points in these trees, because you can make your crafting journey a lot harder or a lot easier by the path you take. There's also consumables like files that are made with the alchemy profession or bought on the auction house. They can be used to give you temporary profession stat boosts if you're really trying to min-max your profession abilities. And I recommend using wowprofessions.com. It provides all the necessary info in getting started with these professions, from leveling to specs to knowledge point builds. If you're the type to get super into gold making and in-game economies, player housing, which I'll cover later, or just being able to gather mats and craft your own gear, then you have a lot to look forward to with professions. The general path you take when crafting is learning your preferred profession from the trainer. We'll use the alchemy trainer as an example. So you could talk to a guard and ask them to direct you to the nearest trainer for whichever profession you're interested in learning. Here's the alchemy table here, and right here is the alchemy trainer. I already know Midnight Alchemy and all the recipes for it, but the general path you would take is learning your preferred profession from the trainer. They would teach you Midnight Alchemy here. Each expansion has its own version of the profession to level, but of course the most recent expansion is going to be the best one to get into if you're concerned with gold and actually creating useful things. But you would continue to learn recipes from them as you level, and you level up by crafting recipes. So if you click on the crafting table, there will be symbols next to these. The orange symbol means you will definitely level up. Yellow means most likely, green small chance, and if there's no symbol, it's not going to provide any profession levels. So as you craft things, your level will go up here at this bar at the top. As you level up, more recipes will become available to be purchased from the trainer, so you can just buy more recipes, keep on crafting. In Midnight, it is worth crafting everything that has a first time crafting bonus as well. So if you go into the menu here, you can filter by show learned, so that's the things you can possibly craft at all because you know it. You could go to skill up and it will show you things you can craft that can give you level, or you could do it by first craft bonus, and every time you craft something for the first time, you will earn a specific currency called Moxie, and this is in Midnight specifically. You would earn, depending on the profession, for alchemists you earn Artisan Alchemist's Moxie, and tailoring would get Artisan Tailor's Moxie, used for purchasing specific recipes to that profession. It's worth crafting things for the first time crafting bonus, even if it won't level up your profession, because it will give you the Moxie, and every time you craft something for the first time, it gives you an extra knowledge point that you can spend in your specializations. Also, if you are not max level yet, your first time first-time crafts will provide you with a fair bit of XP. Let's say you've completed the campaign, you're still not max level, so you're kind of grinding out those last few levels. That is a good time, probably around 88 or 89, to go ahead and start leveling some professions, because every first-time craft is going to get you a good bit of XP and help you finish up that journey to max level. So you craft, buy recipes, spend knowledge points, rinse and repeat until you have leveled and learned as much as possible. That's how most crafting professions work, with some slight differences, like alchemy will learn some of its recipes from this cauldron next to the table. Normally there's recipes in here, but I've already learned them all. There's a crafting orders section that is home to public orders that anyone can place, guild orders, which are specifically crafting orders made by your guildmates, patron orders, these are essentially NPC orders which you can use to get moxie, as well as augment runes, which are good consumable for strength later on, and glimmers, which give you extra knowledge points to spend in your spec trees. Last, there are personal orders. This is going to be your home if you're a crafter that advertises and whispers people in trade chat to fill their orders personally. These are all great ways to help out others for some gold, and also to advance your crafting skill. There's also weekly crafting quests that you can pick up right over here. You can see them right here next to Murder Row. This little area, you're going to pick up weekly crafting quests from this person that's going to be specific to your primary professions. Will get you some extra knowledge points to spend in your spec trees. Besides that, there are unique one-time items out in the world that grant knowledge points. WoW-professions.com is a good place to find where all of your one-time knowledge point items are going to be located. You can just kind of explore the world and pick these up as you're doing it. There's weekly knowledge point items that can be found in treasures out in the world as well. I have this little add-on here that actually helps me keep track of my professions. I'll talk about that more in the add-on section later. And for enough Moxie and Voidlight Marl, you can also buy specific books that will give you a whole 10 knowledge points from a single book. This is a one-time deal that you definitely want to take advantage of for a good early bit of knowledge points to spend in your spec trees. I know I said basics, but as you can see, professions can be a whole game within a game for many people. Let's get into housing. Hit the H key or click the housing dashboard symbol down here, shaped like a little house, to open up the housing dashboard. Luckily, this system is immediately available even to a fresh character. So if you are getting into WoW for housing, you can jump right in. Initially, the housing dashboard will steer you into visiting either the Horde or Alliance neighborhood, depending on which character you're playing. Alliance characters will be steered to Founder's Point, and Horde characters will be steered towards Razorwind Shores. Don't worry about having to choose between the two though, because every account is allowed one home in each neighborhood. The first home you get for free, and once you get the second one, it will cost 1,000 gold to purchase the property. There are public neighborhoods, guild neighborhoods, and charter neighborhoods. But no matter what kind of neighborhood you are in, it is quite easy to pick up your house and switch to a different plot if you end up not liking your first location. Once you have your house though, the housing dashboard will now have a housing leveling tab right here. This shows your progression through the housing system. You can level this up by learning new decor for the first time and by participating in what are called the neighborhood endeavors. As you level up, you will earn new room types, new house types, and increased decor budgets, which is how much decor you can place, and more room placement budget, which decides how many rooms you can place. Each piece of decor and each room has a point value. The drop-down menu at the top lets you switch between your Alliance house and your Horde house, and you can visit either house with any character regardless of faction. There's also a teleport to plot button right here, which you can place on your bars, and you can even switch to get the other teleport to house, so you can have both of these on your bars. Endeavors are rotating neighborhood challenges in which a faction with a unique decor will visit your neighborhood for a set period of time, and everyone in the neighborhood can complete tasks to advance the progress of the endeavor, which unlocks the ability to purchase decor unique to that faction upon reaching each milestone of progression. Here's the milestones. Completing the final milestone of the endeavor unlocks a special chest with extra community coupons and housing XP. The XP goes towards your housing leveling, and the community coupons are currency that let you purchase the unique visiting factions decor. The second tab on the right side is the decor catalog that lets you browse every piece of decor in the game with filters as well. If you ever want to visit a friend's house, it's as easy as right-clicking their name in the friends list. You can view houses and then click to visit. I think Blizzard has done an excellent job of implementing the housing system into the game, and I've had a great time with it. I even have an ongoing series in which I started with a new character and a single piece of gold and worked my way up to becoming a homeowner, slowly building up my house. So check it out if you enjoy that type of content. What makes the housing system so interesting for me is the ability to scale and clip decor in unexpected ways. There are some amazing creators out there that have come up with some wild stuff. Once you get into the system, decor can be earned from almost everything you do. Quest lines, achievements, drops, crafting, and purchased from vendors throughout the world. Next, we'll cover the bags. And as you can see down here, I have 6 bags equipped. The far right is my main pack, and that's just the baseline storage that all characters have. And these 4 smaller golden circles are my extra bags. They have way more storage than my regular pack. And then this far left one is the reagent bag with the silver border. And of course, the reagent bag can only hold reagents that are used in crafting. With the default UI, clicking a bag will open just that bag. You'd have to click each one individually to open them all, or you can just hit B, which opens them all together at once. You can right click on some of these bags and convert to combined bag, which just makes it appear as one backpack for your regular storage and one pack for your reagents. So this kind of simplifies things a lot for you. If you are going to be using add-ons, which I'll talk about later, I do highly recommend using the Baginator add-on. It presents your storage all as a single bag, but my favorite part is that it will auto-sort things into nice little categories. When you're just starting, you may have a Hearthstone in your bag. Hovering over it, you can read that it will return you to whatever location you set it to, basically. Read right there. Speak to an innkeeper in a different place to change your home location. So wherever you set your home location to, your Hearthstone is a free teleport to that spot. You can usually find inns in all major cities and capitals and hubs, and sometimes just out in specific zones. I actually have mine set to Amanizar village in Zulaman because of the new zones for this expansion. The one that takes the longest to get to is here in Zulaman. So set my Hearthstone there and I can use it whenever I need it. You actually don't need to keep it in your bag if you have toy versions of the Hearthstone. You can just set those on your bars instead and then delete this from your bag, which I'm going to go ahead and do because I don't actually need this. So see, my Hearthstone of the Flame warband toy does the same thing as a regular Hearthstone, but with bags. When you start out, I don't even have matching bags here. This is horrible. When you start out, you're probably going to have missing bags or not very big bags. Over time, you'll eventually want to work your way up to having max or near max size bags. But whenever you do that, you're probably going to have to make use of a bank because you can't unequip a bag that has items in it. I could unequip my imbued bright linen backpack because it has 36 slots empty. So that whole thing is empty. I could unequip it. But if there's a bag like this one that's full, I cannot unequip this bag without taking everything out of it. So if you get to a point where you're ready to upgrade all your bags because they're full to bursting, you're going to need to use a bank. So there's banks in major cities. Here in Midnight, bank is right here. So here's the bankers. There are 2 kinds of banks. There's a character-specific bank, so anything you put in there, only that character is going to see. And then there's a warband bank. This is shared across your entire warband, so all your warband characters can use this, but not everything is considered a warbound item, so you can't put everything in there. Your character bank, you can put whatever you want here, but like I said, it's only available to that character. This character does not have any bank space purchased, so you can buy your first tab of bank space for single gold. Not too bad. Gives me 98 slots. Next one costs 100, then 500, then 1,000, 2,500. It keeps going on and on. 5,000, whatever. There you go. You got a max size bank. There's the same deal for your warband bank, but it gets a lot more expensive for the warband bank. Each tab increases in price just like with the personal bank, but it just goes up by a lot more. So for me to get my next warband bank tab would cost 500,000 gold. Pretty expensive actually. That's a couple WoW tokens right now. That's like 40 bucks. Using your character-specific bank, which is a lot cheaper, what you would do is buy a couple tabs. You might not even need a couple, you might just need one. Put everything in the bank, then you'll be able to unequip your bags, put them into your main pack here, because there's only a couple slots on it. Then you can either sell those or get rid of those, however you want, and then go buy some new bags and put them in these spots. Remember that you can only have one reagent bag, so when you're purchasing the other 4, make sure that they are normal bags, because if you buy a reagent bag, you will not be able to use it in these slots, and you won't be able to put anything in it but reagents. So that would be the process for upgrading your bags. You could craft your own bags if you're into like tailoring, or you could just go on the auction house. Speaking of the auction house, let's make our way over to the auction house. So the auction house is somewhere that that you can buy and sell items to and from other players. This is the player economy. So everything in here, let's say I want to look at some housing items. I'll click housing. I can get even more specific if I want decor or housing dye, but click what you want to look for, hit search, and it shows it all. And you can filter things by price, by name, by availability. But if you're wanting to sell stuff, you would go here, put what you want to sell, how much, what price. You can have it in buyout mode or auction bid mode, so people could make bids on it until a timer's up. And the same thing with buying. You can make bids on things, or you can buy things outright as well. But this is the player-driven gold economy, where players list, sell, and buy all kinds of goods. There are even players known as goblins, not the race, but people, whose primary gameplay is all about gold making. I've dabbled a little bit with crafting and selling housing decor in my Hearthlock series actually, and made a fair bit of gold doing that. But I'm nowhere near the level of some of the goblins in this game. Some experienced goblins have many accounts and characters, buying low, selling high, flipping items, resetting markets by buying up all the cheapest items and reposting them higher. And if it's done well, you can even make enough gold to pay for your monthly subscription with in-game gold. There's an item called a WoW token that can be purchased for $20 cash and sold on the auction house. So this is a way of basically spending money to get gold in-game. But if you're an expert at making gold, you can purchase these WoW tokens with in-game gold, and then you can convert them to 30 days of game time. And time is money, friend. For our purposes, we are in the market for some decent bags. So I would go to containers, bags, search, and then see it's actually filtered here by slots. So these are the 38 slot bags. I believe these are max. Yep, Sunfire Silk bag. Very expensive, 13,000 per. Not quite ready to drop that kind of money, especially since my character is a tailor. I could craft my own bags for much cheaper than that. But you would just click on it, buy it out, and then you've got yourself a bag. Whenever you purchase an item from the auction house, though, it does not go straight into your inventory. It actually goes into your mailbox. I'll purchase something just for the sake of getting that symbol for you guys. I am using the Auctionator add-on. Like I said, we'll talk about add-ons later, but it's by the same person that makes the Baginator one. Just makes using the auction house that much easier. Let's go ahead and buy this. So once I buy it, you see that little unread mail from the auction house. So now I know that my item that I purchased is going to be in the mail. Find these little mailbox symbols on this mini map here, but you'd open your mailbox right there. Got this too. I don't know what this is. I don't need it. I'm going to open that. Got myself a pattern. May as well learn it. Why not? That's how your bags, the bank, and the auction house all work. Next, we can go over the cash shop. Yay, everybody's favorite topic. Yes, there is a cash shop in this game that you have to pay a $15 a month subscription and box price on expansions for. But hey, they got to make their money somehow. But since this is a subscription-based game, of course people get really cranky about the cash shop. It can be an expensive game. But I would say one positive thing, despite being over 20 years old at this point, the subscription price has stayed the same. Probably the biggest shop item to talk about is something we already covered, the WoW token. We go to services right there. Look at, you can buy it for 20 bucks. Sell it on the auction house, you got yourself some gold. The gold price on WoW tokens does fluctuate with the economy, so be aware of when you're buying it. There are good times and bad times to buy a WoW token if you're looking to maximize how much money you're gonna make. Right now, WoW token is worth 227,892 as of the time of this recording. This is like the first day of Mythic Plus has just opened up. So there's a ton of people playing the game, probably a lot of people buying it. So price has gone down a bit. It was higher just a month or two ago. It was a lot higher. A lot of people don't care about the gold making side of the game, so they'll just buy a couple of these every once in a while to cover their in-game costs. And WoW has recently added a new paid currency to the game, which I'm sure everyone is excited about right here. Hearthsteel, here we go. And this currency, Hearthsteel, is tied to housing. This is still new, but you know, of course it puts a bad taste in some players' mouths, since each piece of decor needs to be repurchased if you want multiples. There's already been some controversy about this with this Spring Blossom decor pack. I think when it first came out, it came with like one tree, and if you wanted more trees, it was like $7 for a tree. So if you wanted like a forest of these Spring Blossom trees, you'd have to really fork out some money. They like edit it so that they did like that day that they released it, you know, obviously people weren't happy with that, so they changed it that day, and I think they added more trees to the pack, and then they They brought the price of the individual trees down a bit, but it is expensive and it still does cost per item. So that part kind of sucks. I personally feel like anything you buy with real money, any decor you buy with real money, you should be able to place quite a bit of. There should not be limitations on that because, yeah, it's a premium thing that you're paying for. I think they should just be infinitely placeable. I don't know. Is that okay? Is that a good way to fix it? Who knows? Besides Heartsteel and WoW tokens, there are also in-game service tokens. So let's go to services. We've got character boosts, realm transfers, faction changes, race changes, name changes. These are actually all on sale when I'm recording this, but normally they are more expensive. So that's why I was saying when you make your character, you can change pretty much everything about it besides the class. As far as appearance and gender goes, you can change that as much as you want. But if you did want to change your faction or your realm or your name or your race, that would cost some extra money. You'd have to shell out some money to do that. So it is worth paying a little bit extra attention to those specific aspects of your character. There are game upgrades. This is basically if I didn't have Midnight and I wanted to get the Epic Edition, and this is what it would cost. The very basic version of Midnight is only $50. So, you know, if you follow the path that I suggested where you played at level 20 for free, pay a $15 sub to get to level 80, and then you were ready to get into the current content at after 80, if you're still playing, you could just buy this $50 Midnight expansion. This would get you all the current content. Once you have this, you're caught up with the game. The only thing you'll have to keep up with is your $15 a month. There are like premium versions that come with extra stuff, like Trader's Tender, a character boost, Transmog, mounts, even more junk. There are also some classic WoW things in here, some random packs. There's a fair bit of mounts on here. There's way more mounts and pets in the game that you can just earn by playing, but there are some premium ones. The same thing with Transmog. There's tons of Transmog in the game, but there's a couple premium things you can buy now. What in the hell? This is the first time I've seen this, actually. One thing that's annoying is that if you're wearing a tabard on your character, it's gonna show up on all these, so I can't actually see 100% what this looks like unless I change my transmog. We've got our pets. This is a new pet pack. This is actually a Habit for Humanity charity thing. So if you buy this, you do get some in-game stuff, but you also, some of the money goes to charity. We've, of course, got toys. These are some different Hearthstones. The magical Merc Morpher. This lets you and your party click on it to turn into different Murlocs. Probably some of the, like, primo things you could buy would be... Where's the bear? No, this has an anvil for selling and repairing gear, and it has a transmog on it, so you can change your transmog with this mount. Another mount that is sometimes on the store, every once in a while this comes back, is the Gilded Brutosaur. Now this is a $90 mount. This one's kind of insane. It lets you access the auction house and has a mail courier on it. So your mailbox and the auction house. You can buy stuff and then immediately receive it anywhere you are as long as you can mount with this. So it's very useful, but this is, yeah, it's very expensive. This is the only game I play, so give me a break. If you're in a city and you need to know where something is, find a guard. They'll have a map symbol when you click them. Then you can search through all this. There's a whole bunch of everything you could possibly want. Let's find the Barber. I'm not sure where it is in Silvermoon yet. Still getting used to this place. So it gives it this little symbol here. So in a Barber, you would come up and use the mirrors. So you remember earlier I said you can change your character's appearance and gender as much as you want, and this can be done by using the Barber. Major cities will have a Barber that you can use to change your appearance completely whenever you want. And you can even save looks, like I have right here. This might actually be an add-on that does this. I'm not 100% sure on that. It might be Narcissus, maybe. This is free to do, unlike the race and name changes, so those aspects are worth spending a little bit of extra time on. Next, we'll talk a little bit about add-ons. Add-ons have long been a hotly debated topic. Some people hate them, some people love them. It's hard to deny that they can be very useful. I'm going to go hit some dummies so you can see what I've done with my UI using add-ons. There are tons of add-ons out there, and they do many things, but the first thing you might notice is my cooldown manager. So I have it set to hide when I'm not in combat, so I'm going to start some combat here. This is my cast bar. This is my cooldown manager. You can see here's all my main abilities, my buffs, My important things to keep track of are all here. I really like this setup. I still have my bars here. Thanks to Bartender, I have them set to hide when I'm not, unless I hover over them. So they're still there. I can still change my keybinds at a moment's notice, move abilities around. But then I also have this so I can track my combat and what's important during combat. This tracks my trinket. These are my health potions and stat potions. I've got to add on over here. Lets me track my profession knowledge points that I can get each week. I've got to add on right here, which is actually having some errors right now. But I have an add-on here that will actually take all the world quests in an area and put them all on the side here to a place where I can see what it is, what it gives me, what I haven't earned from it. I can actually click on it to make it pop up in my bars here, so I could set this to my active quest. Let's look at my add-ons menu so you can just see all the stuff that I've got going on. I try to, for the most part, not use combat add-ons, especially since they've tried to kind of crack down on them, but there's a lot of add-ons that just make things easier. Like I love Auctionator and Baginator. This makes my life way easier. Scrap will automatically sell my junk. So this is junk. If I go see a vendor, it'll sell that automatically, and it will also repair my gear automatically. It keeps my gear pretty much topped off. I have mount enhanced journals so I can sort mounts in a better way. Like I like to sort mounts by what are the rarest mounts I have. I like to know. It's kind of fun to me to see. Oh, 0.01% of players have this lab grown Stormray. The reason for that is because the new mount from this expansion that I'm pretty sure this is the first week you can actually get it. So I'm just one of the first people to get it. You can see 0.39%. So less than 1% of people have this mount. That's because it's a store mount. It costs money. This one was a drop. So this one, less than 2% of people have this. Over the expansion, I'm sure a lot more people will get this. But it kind of sorts everything by rarity, which is fun to see. Silver Dragon, when I'm flying around in the open world, this will give me notification for rares and treasures and stuff. It will say, hey, this thing is spawned in the game right now. You can go fight this rare, you can go collect this treasure, and it will live and tell me where it is. It will give me like arrows and map markers. Pre-made groups filter makes it easier for me to use the group finder. So when I'm looking for some groups, it gives me this little menu here. I can add a lot of filters to things to find exactly what I'm looking for. Right here, Enchant Me. I really like this add-on. This is the one that is showing me the E's and the G's here. It's letting me know that these pieces of gear do not have an enchantment and they can have one applied. Or they can have a gem that can be applied. I have one called Eye Level. That's the one that shows me all the eye levels without me needing to hover over each piece of gear. I've got Syndicator, same person that makes Baginator and Auctionator. This makes it so that when I hover over an item like a currency or anything really, it'll show me how much I have, but it will also show me how much all my other characters in the game have. So Voidlight Marl. This character has 10,000 Voidlight Marl, but across all my characters got 15,000. So if I wanted to transfer some, I know I could have at least that much to spend. Same thing with gold. I've got that much across all my characters. Handy notes just kind of marks all the little extra things on the map. I like using Better Fishing because I can use a single keybind to cast and then reel it in. So I can just set that to like whatever I want. It makes fishing a lot simpler. BTW quest is useful if you're trying to track which quest lines you've done, what quest lines are in a quest line altogether. Platinator, which is how my enemy nameplates look. I'm using Platinator, but I'm using Marcellian and Flames profile for this, which I think is a really nice profile. It makes it super clear what you're targeting, and then inside dungeons, the color coding system makes it easier to tell what type of mobs, what type of enemies are doing what type of things. I have Blizz Move. This is really good for moving my stuff around. I think that's also what lets me resize. I just hold control and then use my mouse scroll. I can make things bigger and smaller, move them around. I have no auto close, which works with that so that when I open multiple menus, it doesn't close other ones. I can fill up a whole bunch of menus here and then I can adjust them however I want. Better cooldown manager is what I use to make my, don't want to hit that one. It's what I use to make this so customizable. This is not as customizable in the base game as it is using Better Cooldown Manager. Achievements back button. Really simple thing that I just wish was in the base game. If I click on something, I can just go back with this. Cursor trail. It's on when I'm in combat. See, I need to actually make this a little bit stronger. It's not quite strong enough for me to find. I need to rebind this, but I did have a keybind to just inspect people without having to like right click inspect. Loggerhead. Dialogue UI, which you may have noticed when I talk to someone, I have a really nice kind of zoom in effect that happens. So using dialogue UI, it zooms in, hides the rest of my UI, gives me this nice kind of scroll looking thing for my picking up quests and reading quest text. It just makes it feel more cinematic and kind of brings you down because you spend a lot of time zoomed out in this game, so it'll kind of zoom you in and makes you feel more like that's my character and this is who I'm accepting a quest from. It's an actual NPC. It's like a person, I'm not just clicking on it because there's an exclamation point there, which ultimately, I mean, you still are. But so there's tons of really awesome add-ons that you can use. If you are interested in using add-ons, the simplest way to do it would be CurseForge. CurseForge gives you a nice, easy to use interface where you can search and browse through add-ons, and then you can easily click them to install them, and you can uninstall them just as easily without having to like go into your games folders and stuff. And as they are updated as well, you can simply click on the update buttons. There are other ways to do this. You could do it manually, which I think is just, it's too much. It's a pain for me personally. So we've covered just about everything I can think of except for the leveling process, gearing up, combat, and then after that stuff we'll get into some of the end game activities. As you level, the typical route you'll go through is Exile's Reach, which is the little tutorial island scenario that will take you from level 1 to 10. The game will kind of steer you to the Dragon Isles after that, from levels 10 to 70. Then there is an abridged version of the War Within expansion from 70 to 80, and then the current content of Midnight from 80 to 90, which is max level. The game will try to guide you through this experience, but as a new player, sometimes you're going to find yourself going off the rails because you don't know any better. And this game's not really great at teaching new players what they should and shouldn't be doing. But typically, leveling up and progressing through the game is done by questing. This involves accepting, completing, and then turning in quests in the world from NPCs. Okay, in the map legend that we looked at earlier, there are certain quest symbols that as you level up, you will want to follow. The brown shield with the yellow exclamation point inside of it is the campaign or main quests. These are the ones that you should pay the most attention to for story and for XP. The purple, pink kind of triangle questions, these important quests, are also worth doing as they typically will unlock important account features. Besides those two, there's the normal exclamation point, and that's just local stories, also known as side quests. These are going to be scattered throughout the entire world, and sometimes they can be efficient to do if they are near campaign quests. It might just be a cluster of quests all in one area where you can just pick up everything, knock it all out at the same time, and then turn it all in for a big boost to XP. So sometimes it will make sense to do those alongside the campaign quests if they're clustered. But as a first time player, the campaign ones are fine to focus so you don't end up lost and way off the beaten path. The Dragon Isle story is most likely going to feel confusing, and I wouldn't really call it a great place to start from a lore perspective, but the Dragon Isles will unlock your flying sooner, and the zones look great. If you are interested in the story, there are many great creators like Noble87 and Platinum WoW that focus on the lore of WoW. They'll even have summaries to get you caught up, or at least started. This lore's been going on for 30 years now, so if you want to get into the weeds, there's plenty to sink your teeth into. But I would suggest just following the Dragon Isles campaign to just learn the game naturally, and then when you hit level 70, you should get a quest to experience the recapped version of War Within by talking to a scroll in Valdrakken. This will get you caught up with the more recent lore in the World Soul Saga, which is Blizzard's big epic 3 expansion story that we're now in the middle of with Midnight. This should take you to level 80, or at least close to it. And don't worry if it takes you a little bit over even, because all the current content in Midnight will give you plenty of sources of XP. Before talking about leveling the last 10 levels, I want to make sure to let it be known you do not have to reach 80 through the typical leveling process that we just talked about, if you'd rather not. Any old content is fine to level through. but the game does not really hold your hand in a lot of the older content. And it may even be teaching you some outdated things or features that aren't really so relevant anymore. So it can be easy to kind of end up feeling aimless. If you'd rather level up through another expansions campaign though, in both faction capitals you can seek out Chromie. This little gnome is actually a dragon named Chronormu, and she's a member of the Bronze Dragon Flight. This is a group of dragons that watch over, aka constantly fuck with, the timeline. But you can speak with her to enter what is called Chromie time. This allows you to sync your character to a specific expansion story and timeline so that you can level through that content. This will work up to a certain point where it will eventually kick you out of Chromie time and push you towards the newer content. If you don't really care about questing, some people will just level up by queuing for dungeons over and over if that's the content they prefer. Although this is much quicker to do as a tank or healer, as they will have much shorter queue times than a DPS. Solo DPS queue times can be pretty horrible. It's usually better during XP boosted events, or if you have a tank or healer buddy who will queue with you to speed things up. When you reach 80, you're pretty much forced to start midnight content, since all older content will provide next to no XP. But at level 80, you should receive a quest to speak with Lady Leadrin at your faction's capital, and this will start your journey into the Midnight expansion and the current content. Once you start Midnight, I would recommend following the main story to catch up and unlock all the new features and systems. But unlike before, feel free to go off the rails and explore, do side quests, just enjoy yourself, because the campaign alone will not be enough to get you to max level, and a bit of side quests, queuing up for dungeons, and other activities will all help you get there, as well as level up the new expansion Renown. Before we get into combat, I want to talk a little bit about gearing up. As you quest, you'll be receiving a lot of gear, and it's worth noting that before you hit max level, and even for a bit after that, item level is king. A higher item level will most often be more beneficial because of the main stat it provides, when compared to an item with a lower item level that provides more secondary stats. So I would just suggest that while leveling, just always equip whatever new gear you get, as long as it has a higher eye level. You can quickly equip gear in your bag by right-clicking it, or if you open up your character sheet and your bag at the same time, you can click and drag it to the empty slot as well. But right-clicking is just much quicker and easier. You can hold shift while hovering over an item to actually compare it to your currently equipped gear for the relevant slot. And if you want to preview the appearance of a piece of gear or decor in your bags, you can hold control and left-click the item to see what it would look like when equipped on your character. Besides gear, most items and consumables in your bag can be used, consumed, and equipped by right-clicking them. And you can move them around in your bags just by left-clicking and dragging them. Real quick, I'll also mention that you may notice some trinkets or gear you get may have some text referring to their effects. There may be some text saying equip or use, as you can see with this ever-collapsing void fissure. The green text, it says use. Hold the fissure open, causing time to distort itself, reducing your movement speed by 50% while increasing your haste by 103 each second over 10 seconds. So since this can be used, if you look down here, see this is just an equip trinket. I put it on and I get the effects. This one can be used, so you can actually take it and put it onto your ability bars. I actually already have it on my ability bars right here. I have a macro actually that will use my trinket and my stat potions at the same time. But you can also just have a separate button that is just the unused trinket. This will mostly apply to trinkets, but some other gear has a chance of having it too, so just keep an eye out for that. These pieces that have abilities can be activated if you place them on your bars. But if you want to sell an item in your bag, find an NPC with a bag symbol or an anvil symbol, and you can speak with them, open up the items that they are a vendor for, as well as your own bags. Okay, he's got an anvil symbol, so he can sell gear, buy gear, and he can repair your gear that you are wearing. They've got a bag symbol, so you can buy stuff from them. They sell stuff, and you can sell junk and other things to them as well. So if you want to purchase something that they sell, you just right click it from there. They'll have their own menu of things that they can sell and do with their name there. These are obviously my bags. So if I want to buy something they sell, which I don't, but let's say I do. Let's say I want to buy this mining pick, whatever, I'll just buy it. Right click it, I buy it. It is now in my bags. If I want to purchase more than one thing, I can hold shift. Here, we'll do it with this, the Luminant Flux. Hold shift brings up this. Now I can either use the button if I just want a few, or I can use my keyboard. being, I want to buy 100 Luminant Flux. And then you would hit OK, and you would buy that much. Let's say you want to split some items in your bags. I've got all these potent healing potions. So I'm going to shift, right click. Let's say I want to split it about in half. So I'll do 53. I could shift click, pick the number, and then I would just select a different slot to set it into. I can right click a stack of items in my bags to sell it. Let's say I wanted to sell the mining pick back. It's actually just going to give me a refund since I just purchased it. But if it was something else, sell price 27 gold. Right click, I've sold it. And then at a blacksmith or somebody with the anvil symbol, you can also repair. You can sell junk. You can repair items. You could repair all as well. So just make sure if you hover over some gear, you'll see it has a durability. This is 55 out of 55. I think my scrap add-on is the one that auto sells my junk. So whenever I get junk, it auto sells it when I talk to a vendor. And if I talk to someone with the anvil, it'll automatically repair all my gear as well. So it's just less things for me to worry about. I will suggest to be aware of what weapons you need to use your abilities. Make sure not to sell or equip the wrong gear as you're leveling, so you don't end up in a spot where you can't use your abilities. For example, right now I've got a staff equipped, so this is a two-hand thing. When I'm using a staff, I don't have to worry about my offhand slot, because this is covering both of them. But let's say as I'm leveling up, I get a one-handed like sword, and a sword would be good for me to use as long as I also have an offhand item. So if I get a sword to drop and I switch it for my staff, I'm kind of really cutting a lot of the value out of this slot, because the sword and offhand have to go together to have the same value as a two-handed weapon. So if I just have the sword and I don't have the offhand, that's going to be a lot of stats that I'm missing out on. And depending on your class, it may also not allow you to use some of your abilities. Some specs will need specific weapons in order to do some of their abilities. Like there's certain classes that need to have a shield, where just because you could possibly equip other things, if you don't have the shield, you can't use certain defensive abilities. That's just an example. Just make sure you are covering both of your slots with the correct weapons that your character needs to use their specific abilities. Since we were talking about durability a bit ago, equipment durability. You can move this wherever you want, but since that's where I have it, if my gear were to break or get close to breaking, it would show a little armor set here. A person wearing armor. Whatever pieces are near breaking would be yellow, and then completely broken pieces would be red. This is obviously very bad. If something completely breaks, you are not getting stats from that item. You need to repair it, or you are significantly diminished in how many stats you are getting. I keep wanting to say the word curtailing. Is that correct? Well, I need to look up curtail and see if that means what I'm thinking it means. I'm thinking if you are curtailing yourself, you are making yourself weaker. Is that true? Curtailing means to reduce, limit, shorten, or abridge something. Often place cutting something short in a way that deprives it of completeness or adequacy, such as curtailing a speech or reducing planned activities. If you're not having the preferred gear equipped to use your abilities, or if you're playing with broken gear or unfilled gear slots, you are curtailing your ability to do damage and survive in the game. And by curtailing, I mean you're hurting yourself for no reason. Anyways, back to business. Once you are max level, you will start getting gear that has upgrade tracks. So let's look at some of our gear here. This is 250. Look at the top. It will say there's two things in yellow at the top: item level and then upgrade level. So this is the track of gear. This is a champion track gear piece. So the different gear tracks are: there's adventurer, veteran, champion, hero, and myth track gear. That is the hierarchy. Adventurer is the lowest track, and myth is the tip top gear. Let's go to the crest people and talk about this. Over here at the crest exchange, which is going to be right here below murder row on the left here. These guys, crest exchange and item upgrades. So if I look at the item upgrades, you can upgrade many equipable items to increase their item level. Currency required to upgrade an item varies depending on the item source. Let's look at this so you can see the tracks. That's basically like the variable eye levels. Here, we'll use this one as an example because it's actually champion 1. So champion 1 eye level is 246. So the lowest that a champion track piece of gear can be is champion 1 out of 6, which would be 246. Now the top level, so this is the upgrade track for champion. It can go from 246 up to 263. So there's adventure, veteran, champion, hero, and myth, and they all have their own track. So it's their own set eye levels that they can be. Now there is actually some overlap between all this. But it's got a track too. It's got a low level and it's got a high level. The highest that veteran gear can be is 250. So what about champion? So 250 would be a 6 out of 6 vet piece. Champion 1, yeah, 250. So as you can see, champion 1 is actually lower than veteran 6. But if you go to champion 2, it's the same as veteran 6. So there is some overlap between each of these tracks, and it's just a little bit. 1 and 2 for each track is going to have some overlap with the previous one. And I have a little tooltip here, which is important to know for this season at least. This may continue to be a thing, but this is a system that they still tinker with. The tracks and the upgrading and the overlap, a lot of that's the same, but they've changed where every crest type can only be used on that specific track's gear. Whereas before, the overlap would allow you to spend some of the previous crests. But now it's just hero gear is upgraded only with hero crests. And because of this overlap, it's never worth it to take a gear from level 1 in its track to level 2 using that track's crest. You want to go to the one below it and actually upgrade that one from 5 to 6. So I have this ring, this veteran 5 out of 6 ring, and let's say I got a champion 1 out of 6 ring. So a champion 1 and a veteran 5 are the same eye level, but obviously the champion 1 has a lot more potential. It can upgrade further than the veteran 1 ever could. But instead of spending the champion crest to take it from 1 to 2, the better call would be to take this ring from veteran 5 to veteran 6, and then if I went to that same champion ring, I could bring it from 1 to 2 for free, because there's a watermark for every gear slot. So if I get, well, we'll just keep talking about rings. Well, we'll talk about a normal piece first, because rings and trinkets are just very tiny bit different. So every item level you see here is my watermark. So any headpiece I get, I can at least upgrade it to 250 without spending crests. Obviously, the only ones that's going to apply to would be champion ones at this point, but champion and veteran ones. So let's say I actually get a really good piece of veteran gear that has better stats. And so even though it's not long-term going to be my best gear, I could upgrade it to veteran 6 and it will have the same eye level. It'll still be 250 and it will have the better stats. So it may just be temporarily the best item to use. I could upgrade it from 5 to 6 or even veteran 1 all the way to veteran 6 for free, because my watermark is 250. So any gear that is below 250, I can bring up to 250, as long as it can go that high. If it can't go that high, I can bring it up as high as it can go. So if I had an adventure piece, I could bring the adventure piece to 6 out of 6, but it would be nowhere near as strong as this because it's a different track. But any champion pieces I have can go to 2 out of 6. I will not have to spend any crest to do that. It looks like 259 is the highest that I have for any given gear spot. So any legs I get and any feet I get, I can upgrade to 259 without having to spend any crests. So as long as it's below this, it can go up to either the same level or it could go up to, its maximum that is beneath this. Hero 1 is the same as champion 5. So if I got a random champion 1 legs and it had the better stats, I could go from champion 1 all the way to champion 5 without spending any crests. Now, rings and trinkets, they also have a watermark, but it's for both slots. So as you can see here, for my trinkets, I do have a 259 trinket, but my second trinket is only 250. So the watermark is going to be the lowest of the two. So my highest trinket is 259, but my lowest trinket is 250. And I've never had a trinket above 250 except for this one. So my watermark for trinkets is 250. I can bring any trinkets to 250 as long as they can. If I wanted my watermark to be 259, I would have to get a second trinket up to 259. And it's the same with rings. But I have two 246 rings. That's my watermark for ranks, 246. So it's just useful to know. Never spend crests on an item to take it from 1 to 2, because the gear track under it, you can take it from 5 to 6 and spend those lower value crests. So once I get some myth gear, if I have myth 1 out of 6, what I'm going to want to do is take that slot beneath it from hero 5 to 6 instead of spending those myth crests, because they're much more valuable than hero crests. And that goes all the way down. Hero crests, much more valuable than champion, all the way down to adventurer, which are practically worthless, honestly. So that's me talking way too much and trying to explain the gear tracks. So at this point in your journey, as you're getting these different gears, you're going to want to pay more attention to the secondary stats, because, you know, these actual like tracks of things it's going to matter to you what the secondary stats are, because it could actually be a much better piece of gear if it has the correct secondary stats. And if you're using your crest smart, you can actually save a lot of crests, and whenever you get a new drop, even if it's a lower eye level, you might be able to bring it up to the same eye level of what you're wearing without spending crests. But this is where many will suggest that you sim your character to find the best gear, because there's going to be lists on websites like Icy Veins and Wowhead and stuff that tell you what your best gear is. But if you sim your character, which stands for simulate, this is the best way to find upgrades. Now, this is a whole other system unto itself. I know this whole video is just like information overload. But to do this, you would grab the Simulation Craft add-on, and once that's installed, if you open up your chat box with enter, or if you just hit / also opens it up. I'll type SIMC. It's all one word here. /SIMC. Hit enter. Brings up this string. So this string essentially is everything about my character, all their equipped gear, all their stats, everything unique to them. It's also going to look at everything in my bags as far as gear goes. It's going to look at my currencies that are relevant to upgrading or catalyzing, which we'll talk about later. It'll also look at my talents, multiple talent builds that I have. It'll look at all of them. Oh shit, I just fucking lusted. SimC. So that's everything important to me. There's a little checkbox that says close after copy. So it's already highlighted everything in here. I just hit Control-C. It copies that for me. So let's go to Raidbots. That's my buddy Darth Vane, who started streaming Hearthstone. If you care about that, check him out. Raidbots.com. So here's raidbots.com. So I'm going to go to Top Gear, and this is where you would sim your character. I'll hit Control-V. It pastes it into this box here. Okay, now there's a lot of shit in here. This is all my character stuff. This is upgrade currencies, which you can check things and say, I'm just gonna say max all, so it knows I can do whatever. Don't really care about catalyst charges quite yet. But here, it's showing me all my gear here. This is all the stuff. So it's going to sim everything that I check up to a certain point, because if you make too many selections, it's actually just going to be overload. But not only can you sim your gear, you could use this to search for crafted items or specific drops. You could, let's say, I want to compare, these are both champion. I want to compare them both at max. So I don't want to know how they are now. Let's see, like, which one do I want to use ultimately? So if you click the plus button on something, if there's things you can do to it, such as upgrade it or convert it with a catalyst, there's going to have options for those. So I want to see what the wraps of Umbral Descent upgraded all the way will feel like. Okay, so now it has two selected. It has the original one, and then it has this one. So this is relevant if I just want to see like how much of a difference in my damage will it make I'm already wearing versus if I just upgrade this one item to max. And then I could also do convert to catalyst. So now I'm like, what if I upgrade it to max and convert it with a catalyst to give me the Voidbreaker robes? And then you're like, you know what? I also want to know about this piece if I upgrade it all the way too. So now I've got all four of these things being compared. My default base piece that I'm currently wearing, there's this if I upgrade it all the way, there's what I'm wearing upgraded all the way, and then there's upgrade all the way and catalyze it, which we'll talk about more. Catalyzing is basically a way to change a piece of gear you have into tier piece, into a piece of your tier set. And you know, that's another thing I'm going to explain. There's all kinds of explanations going on. So anyways, I want to see what's the difference between all four of these chess pieces. And that's pretty good in itself, but there's options like that for each and every thing. So you can get really in depth with all this. And then you could also say like, okay, well, I'm looking at chest pieces specifically. So you could say, what if I am comparing this as well? Like all those four pieces, if I use both of these enchantments on either of them. You could do the same with gems, because some gear can have enchantments and some gear can have gems. Gems are typically going to be going on your jewelry, neck, and your rings, but there's also other gear can randomly get slots for gems. And then there's also items that you can get from something else I'll explain later. I definitely care more about raid with this character, so I'm specifically going to click the raid build that I have. I care much less about my Mythic Plus damage, but I mean, I still do have a Mythic Plus build, but I'm more concerned with raid, so I'm going to click that one. But you don't have to select anything in either of these if you don't want to, but I'm just showing you like all the options you have for simming your character. Some specs you can just do base like dungeon slice with. Other ones don't work with certain fight styles. I have looked at the Mage Discord, and they suggest if you're looking at raid simming, you want to use Patchwork, 1 boss, 5 minutes, and then you can use any of these. I'm using nightly because it's taking the build from the night before. Latest will be whatever the latest one is, but it does have a chance to be buggier. And then weekly is taking the builds from the entire week, so it updates much less. Yeah, it even has right here, nightly build from source, most up to date, but low chance of bugs. Then you can even like look at raid buffs. Which raid buffs? And I'm just gonna click the ones that I know my group is gonna have. All right, so I've done all that. There's also custom stuff you can do, which I haven't been fucked with before, but, you know, obviously this is a very powerful system and you can get really deep with it. I've done enough, so I'm going to do Find Top Gear. And it's going to compare, essentially, what I'm wearing now against 3 possible ways that I could upgrade my chest. And it's going to specifically be looking at my damage in a raid, and it's also going to be looking at what enchantments I should use on the chest piece. It'll probably, I think when you click the enchantments, I think I specifically did chest, so it's just going to look at chest, but you can do it for every slot that can be enchanted. And then the gems will just look at everything. If you pick whichever gems you want to sim, it'll compare them on all of the gear pieces they can be applied to. Okay, so 55,485 DPS. Fire Mage is kind of in a rough spot right now. So it's going to show me my chest piece. Here's the differences. Here's my current DPS. So if I just change nothing, it's going to look like this. And then it's going to show me if I just upgrade the Umbra Reps to max and enchant them with the Mark of the Magister, that will increase my DPS by approximately 1,070. If I were to catalyze it and enchant it at max level, that'd be 1,400. If I wear that other chest piece in my bags and upgrade that to max and enchant it, 1,600. And then this is my best. Out of all 4, this is my best one, is to wear the, oh no, it's the other chest piece. The Sprawling Root Tunic gives me 93 verse and 50 mass. So I'll switch items, upgrade Sprawling Root Tunic all the way, enchant it with the Mark of the World Soul, and that's going to give me plus 2,000 damage per second. That's pretty good, actually. So you can do this with any of your gear slots, and you can do it with whatever's in your bags, or if you want to check it against crafted things, you can fine-tune your specific character and what is potentially going to help you do more damage. But simming is much more useful for DPS characters. You can sim with a tank and a healer, but it's made to look for DPS. So just because you can do a little bit more damage with your healer or your tank doesn't necessarily mean that that's the best thing for you to wear, because as a tank, doing damage is good, and tanks can do a lot of damage in this game, but ultimately, it's much more important that you survive an encounter than you do a lot of damage. And a healer, it's the same thing. Your healing potential is going to be much more important than your damage potential, because even like tip-top healer damage it's not great compared to any of the other party members. So your main focus should be healing. It's just not going to be as useful to sim a healer on raid bots. But there is Questionably Epic. Questionably Epic is essentially raid bots for healers. It's very slightly different. I actually don't have a healer right now, but I have played Holy Paladin before, so I'll just click that. But it works basically the same. You would use SimC still and everything. You'd copy that and you'd select whatever character. Oh yeah, look, here's Ash Cheeks. This is, I did a 0 to hero with Ash Cheeks. So I would take Ash Cheeks, do top gear, and I would import right here. I would Control V, but I don't have the string right now. And it would be a very similar type deal where you get to pick, it'll show you all your gear down here. You can pick the gear and you can kind of do the same thing where you, oh, what if I upgrade this piece? Or what if I get this crafted piece? See, you know, add optional items. You're looking for a specific drop, whatever. You set it up how you want, and then you would click go, and it would do the same deal where it's going to simulate your character, except questionably Epic is looking at your potential heals per second. Now, obviously, having a very high heals per second is strong as a healer, but that's not necessarily what's best, because overhealing is a thing, and it's inefficient. You want to be as efficient as possible when you're healing. You want to do as much healing as needed to make getting through an encounter safer for your team. So you guys can survive encounters without struggling, where you can do just the right amount of healing, keep everyone fine, no one's feeling in danger, and you can also help out with your utility and damage as well. So yeah, you can do simming like that, and it's just a lot more strong for DPS characters, but it's very good to learn how to do it. This is like very min-maxy type of stuff, but it's a lot of fun when you're like really getting into how you want to gear your character and how you're learning to maximize your damage. Man, I should probably really learn to play Frost right now. It's doing a lot better than Fire though. Whatever though. I say that, but what's really the best meta is to play what is fun for you. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the Enchants, Gems, and Embellishments that I was talking about earlier. So I do have the add-on eye level, which shows me the eye level of every piece of gear just by opening my character sheet without having to hover over. Don't have to mouse over to see. Also have Enchant Me, and that is what is giving me these red letters. This E means that this piece of gear can be enchanted and does not have an enchantment on it. And then the same with this G. The G means this piece of gear has a slot for a gem that can be filled with a gem. It's empty now. So that's what that prismatic socket is. Sometimes there is gear that will have S, and that means you can put a socket onto it. That was relevant last season. I don't know if it's like that anymore, because I think there was a change in sockets to where gear just randomly has them now. So I'm not sure if you actually have to create the sockets anymore. But if it does have an S, you would need to buy like a jeweler's setting to create a socket on that piece of gear, and then it would give you the G because you need to fill it with a gem. Some of this is hero gear, so it's probably actually worth enchanting these two pieces because they are hero. Hero track gear is worth investing in. So what I would want to do is I could use raidbots.com again and sim my character, just sim my legs and feet to see what enchantments would be best for them. Or I could just pull up Icy Veins or Murloc.io, that's Murloc spelled with a K, that becomes stronger the longer a season goes on, because what Murloc.io or even Archon.gg, these are websites that are pulling from all the logs of people playing the game to show you what the top people are wearing. So that'll show you like, oh, out of the top 50 people playing this character in this content type, this is what they're wearing for their enchants, and it will show you there. But you could also just go to Icy Veins and go to like the enchantments and gems section and see what's the recommended ones, or you could use Raidbots and simulate what the different enchantments are. But I need to find out what are the best enchantments for my legs and for my boots to increase my DPS. So I'm actually going to do that right now. Why not? SimC, copy. I'm going to pause this so you don't have to watch that again. So I looked it up, and it's for enchantments, you would go to item enhancements. I want to look at legs, filter by current expansion only. Here's the current expansion legs. Sunfire Silk Spellthread is going to be my best option for my legs. And goddamn, that shit is expensive. I'd rather not buy these right now. Very expensive. I mean, I could afford it, but I'm about to be running some M+, and I'm probably going to get better gear, so I'm not going to spend 17k on something that's probably going to be replaced within the next few days. But when you're near tip-top shape with your gear, you're going to want to have all your enchantments and all your gems. So gems are basically the same deal. You can also use gems in Raidbots and SimC, or just look at the websites and see what's recommended. Same deal. So instead of item enhancements, I'm going to go to gems. Let's do current expansion. These are all the gems. There's a lot of them. Typically, you're going to want to be increasing your two best secondary stats, with these gems. You could just go for one, but doing two is usually more efficient because this Flawless Deadly Garnet is just crit strike 17. If I go down just one though, Flawless Quick Garnet set 16 critical strike and 7 haste. Now I don't really care about crit as Fire Mage, but 7 haste. 7 haste, you know, you're trading 7 haste for 1 crit. That's a really good deal. So it's usually better to get the ones that are giving you 2 secondary stats. If you're not trying to like get super deep into it, you could just look at what are my top 2 stats I care about. Find the one that gives you those 2, whichever gold one probably is going to give you the most 2 for whatever it is you need. On this gear, I would need 1, 2, 3 gems. Another add-on called True Stat. If you get super high of one of your stats, you may actually start to get diminishing returns pretty heavily, to where it's not worth it to keep investing in that stat, because once you reach that certain point, it's like you're just dumping stats into it just because you want it to say, oh, haste is at like, whoa, 50 or something, but you'll have like heavily diminished returns. So the True Stat value is showing penalties when you reach them, or like how close you are to it. And sometimes it's fine to be a little bit in that penalty, but some classes really only do care about one stat, but they usually will have a nice balance. That's why people will recommend to just sim your character and see which gems are going to be the best. But when you apply an enchantment, this will give that piece of gear, it'll give it a permanent increase. I do say permanent, but you could get another enchantment and slap it on top of this and it will just override the last one. You can only have one enchantment active at a time on a piece of gear, but once you've applied it, it's going to stay there until you replace it. And the same goes for gems. I could put a gem in here, it's going to stay in there until I override it basically with another gem. It's really good. You don't have to keep applying them. Once you've got this thing enchanted or this thing gemmed up, it's good to go. But let's say later on, you know, some of your other, you do get some different gear and maybe it kind of throws this out of whack. You can just change up your gems a little bit, use raid bots, see what the best way to set up your gems is, or just kind of manually switch it up a bit, make everything right. So one last aspect of our gear to cover is embellishments. Embellishments are special bonuses that can be applied only to crafted gear. Now, there's definitely no need to worry about embellishments until you are at the point where you're ready to start crafting some max level gear. You may only equip 2 pieces of gear that have embellishments on at a time though. So let's say I just get 2 pieces of gear crafted that have embellishments and I'm like, okay, these ones are good for now, but later on I'm going to want a different embellishment. So let's say you've got those 2 equipped for a long time. You get a 3rd piece crafted with an embellishment. You can't even put it on because of those other 2. You would need to take off one of those pieces. You cannot have 3 equipped at a time. My character is a tailor. I can craft these Martyr's Bindings. They have an embellishment slot. So if I click it, I can see all the available embellishments. If you check out like Icy Veins or Murloc.io or Archon.gg or use raid bots and sim some crafted gear, or you could just look at some guides to see what the recommended embellishments are for your class and spec. But there's a bunch of them. There's these Blessed Pango Charms. Your helpful spells and abilities have a chance to call upon the Loa Colsey to grant versatility to your target. So that sounds like that's a healing embellishment. Primal Spore Binding. Your spells and abilities can launch explosive spores at your targets, healing allies or damaging enemies based on who your target is. Very interesting. Typically, people will find out which 2 slots are the optimal 2 slots to have crafted gear, because crafted gear cannot reach the same item level as Myth 6 out of 6. It's below that, but just a little bit. So crafted gear at max level with an embellishment, you can use missives to get whatever stats you need. So when you're crafting gear, you're going to want to have sparks. If you're getting it crafted by somebody else, either that person's in your guild or in trade chat and you're whispering them for a personal order, if there is ingredients that have different qualities, you're going to want to have the max quality. So there's 2 qualities of radiant shards. There's silver and gold. I want to buy 6 gold radiant shards. These ones do not have qualities, so I just want to make sure I have them. If it is in a slot that you want to have an embellishment, you want to buy the maximum embellishment. You want to buy gold, not silver, because you can only have 2 embellished pieces. You may as well make them as strong as you can. Whatever your top 2 secondary stats are, get the missive that will give you those. Then you'll infuse it with power. It requires 80 crests. So if you are crafting the highest level, so you want it to be the maximum eye level, you're going to want to have 80 myth crests. So you'll do all that. Once you have all that set to go, you would actually place an order, or if you can craft it yourself, I'm a tailor, I could craft my own gear. But let's say I'm a different class and I wear different gear, so I actually need to have someone else craft it for me. So I could go into trade chat. See, now I'm in trade chat. /2, /1, general Silvermoon. This is general chat for Silvermoon. So go to /2. That's going to put you into trade chat for wherever you are. So I want some really good wrists. Let's say I want these Sunfire bracers. Okay, there's some tooltip shit. Might be important, might not. You can use a public order. I do not recommend this because in a public order, there's no way to guarantee that the crafter will give you a maximum level, like a max value crafted item. So you're going to want to use personal order if you're in trade chat. And then what you do is, well, personal or guild, you can set the minimum quality here. See, there's a box. So if it's guild, you'd go into guild, go to max quality here. Now it's always going to tell you what the maximum quality of that is going to look like, 259. Once you infuse it, it's going to change it. So first I'll add this, then it will let me add this. So this is going to be 272. That's going to be the maximum quality. If I switched it, if I had myth crest at this point and I switched this to myth crest, it would be higher than that even. But guild order or personal order, we'll do personal order. So I'm in trade chat, want max quality, use best quality reagents. Let's say I've bought all these. I bought these at gold instead of silver. So all these boxes will be checked. I'll have to click to use my sparks, click here to use my hero crest. It's not even a good one because it doesn't have all of them. What about, there we go, martyr's bindings, personal order, max value, use my things. So I'm going to want to set all this up, and each of these 3 boxes should be filled if it's something you want embellishment on. Whatever embellishment's recommended, you buy it and then you would put it here. Whatever your secondary stats are, buy that missive, click it into here. You're going to want to have 80 myth crests. Click it here, use best quality reagents, minimum quality to max. So that's going to be 272. So in the trade chat, I've got this order basically pulled up and ready. You can even have this set however much it's going to be, which 2000 is fine. There's shitloads of crafters out there, and a lot of them, they won't even tell you how much they want. They'll just, I'll craft it for you, and then you tip them whatever. A couple thousand's fine though, because it's not like it's difficult to craft things. And there's a ton of competition out there, so they want to make gold, and it's easy for them to just click a few buttons and type a few things to people. So I'll fill this all up perfectly, open up my trade chat, and then I would type LF, and then, you know, you can say crafter if you don't want to, you don't know who makes it, because some of it's a little confusing, because different crafters can make different things. So I'm looking for crafter, and then if you hold shift and click this, it's going to put it right there into there for you. So I'm not going to hit enter because I don't actually want this crafted right now, and someone's going to get their hopes up. But I would hit enter, and then typically, depending on your realm, this is another good reason to be on a high pop realm. It can be a bit of a bitch to find crafters in low pop realms depending on what time you're playing. So if you're playing on a high pop or full pop one, it's usually popping off if you're on at the right time of day. So I type that in. You're going to get probably multiple whispers will start popping up here. So click one, see what they say. If they're like, I'll do it, send it to, sometimes they'll be like, I can do it. And then they'll list the character's name for you to send the order. So once they send their name, this is where you would put it. You'd put their name and then hyphen and then their realm. So let's say their name is Snorf. Look, there is actually Snorf Murden. It'll show you multiple ones depending. Whoever it is and whatever realm they're on, they're like, I'll craft it, send it to this tune. Some of them might have to switch characters to do it for you, but they don't mind doing it. So you'd have all that set up. You could even put a message here like thanks or whatever. Place your order. Beep. At that point, in the whisper with the person, because whispers are essentially DMs, you'd click it and be like, sent it, or, you know, thanks, I sent it. They'll get onto the character that needs to craft it. They'll click their buttons, which should only take them a few seconds, really. It's not hard. They'll get their gold. Your item will be sent into the mailbox, and they'll usually reply in the whisper like, thanks, or it's done, enjoy. Then you'd go to your mailbox, and you'd have your crafted gear. So that's how the whole gear crafting works. It's kind of a lot, but once you're used to it, it's not so bad. Doing it within a guild is perfectly fine too. It's a little bit easier because you don't have to get into trade chat or any of that shit. You can just like chat with your guildies in the Discord and be like, hey, I need somebody that can craft this, and then you guys can kind of go through it together. But yeah, the embellishments, sort of like enchantments and gems, but you can only have 2 on at a time. So you can remove, you have to buy a specific item to remove it, and you have to like go through the recrafting of it too, so it's kind of a pain to do. I would just recommend avoiding putting an embellishment on something if you don't intend for it to stay there, honestly, because it's more trouble than it's worth to like be constantly adding and removing embellishments to items. A different part of gear we haven't talked about, BIS gear. You may see or hear BIS. BIS stands for best in slot. So this refers to your spec's theoretical best possible gear. These are your gear slots, so your best in slot is going to be the absolute best piece of gear that you can wear for each slot. Finding your BIS listed on Icy Veins or Wowhead will give you an idea of where to earn your best pieces from, whether they drop from Raid or from Mythic plus Dungeons. That's where you're going to find out. The BIS lists will sometimes include crafted gear, so you might see like, oh, these are the best slots to have for my embellishment, these 2 slots. And it's important to keep in mind that a BIS list always refers to the highest track of gear for drops. So it's talking about myth level gear. So getting an item from your BIS list at a lower track is not really the same deal. If I have my BIS item, but it's in hero, it's on the hero track, it's not anywhere nearly as valuable. Yeah, it's still strong if hero's kind of like as high as I'm going to get with my gear, but if I'm going to eventually be getting myth gear, anything below it is not the same. This is really important when you're thinking about your weapon, because this is the thing that you want to get as strong as possible, as fast as possible. A lot of the times people will craft weapons first because a maximum crafted weapon is going to be myth adjacent. So it's like myth track adjacent. It's not myth gear, but it's just slightly below the tip top gear. And this might be the best choice for a lot of people that are not going to be mythic raiding. It's possible that all your best weapons drop from the raid. And if you're not a mythic raider, you don't have a high chance of getting those, because it would either need to drop from the actual running the mythic raid week after week, hoping you get that drop, or from the vault, and you're only getting myth gear in the vault from mythic raiding as well. So if your best stuff's in the raid and you're not a mythic raider, it kind of sucks. You don't have a high chance of getting that. But if your best gear drops from Mythic Plus, this can be a lot easier to get because it takes a lot less coordination to get through some plus 10s, some Mythic plus 10s, than it does to get through a Mythic raid. So simply doing 8 plus 10s is going to have you 3 chances of getting a Mythic weapon. And you know, a Mythic weapon from the dungeon loot tables may not be as good for you as the raid myth tables, but you kind of got to take what you can get. So do not be a slave to the BIS list. It's much better to be simming your character to see where reasonable upgrades are, because your BIS may cap out with just dungeon gear or even just hero gear if that's as far as you go. So it's not always super valuable to just follow the BIS list religiously. Finally, after all this time, let's talk combat, the most fun part of the game in my opinion. WoW is a tab target combat system with a really fast pace, and each button press feels impactful and responsive. You can cycle through targets by hitting tab, but you can also click a specific target to switch to it, as well as using action targeting in the options if you want to be able to cast based on where you are looking. This isn't perfect, but it's decent. Maybe not the best for optimal gameplay, but if you're looking for something that's a little bit more actiony. There's also the option to enable mouse over targeting that lets you hover your mouse over a nameplate and cast on that unit without switching targets. This is also pretty useful for healing. When in combat, basic auto attacks will be handled simply by right-clicking an enemy, and if you're in range, you will hit it. The spells and abilities you'll have placed on your action bars are going to be your main source of damage, and they'll usually have a flow to them depending on your class and spec that would be referred to as your rotation. Some classes have a much stricter order of abilities, while others have more of a priority list. Rotations often will revolve around what are called cooldowns. These are your strongest abilities that have longer times before they become available to use again. Lining up your strongest abilities together will often result in your biggest damage, especially if you also use a stat potion and somebody in your group uses Bloodlust or Heroism, which will increase the group's haste, allowing for you to press your buttons much quicker than normal. Stat potions have a 5-minute cooldown and can give you a huge stat boost to increase your damage substantially along with the lust. The Bloodlust/Heroism is an ability with a long 10-minute exhaustion debuff. So lining up all your cooldowns with the Stat Potion, Bloodlust, and even any on-use trinkets you have is a great way to melt enemies. Some specs excel in single target damage, which is great against bosses. Some excel in AoE, which stands for Area of Effect, and these hit multiple enemies that are grouped together. Cleave is when you have abilities that deal damage to a second target at what would usually be reduced effectiveness. This is great for like duo bosses or hitting priority mobs as your main target and then getting some secondary damage off on a second enemy that's maybe not as important. A very important part of combat is using interrupts. These are abilities you can use that will stop an enemy from casting an ability and prevent them from casting that again for a short period of time. Interrupting can completely negate damage and devastating abilities, so I highly recommend that you place your interrupt ability in an easy-to-use, high-priority keybind. My interrupt is always set to E. It's right next to my movement keys, and I use the same interrupt across all my characters. Another way of mitigating damage and temporarily stopping casts is to use other CC abilities. These are crowd control. A CC would be any ability that stuns, blinds, or otherwise interferes or incapacitates an enemy and their ability to cast, position, or deal damage. Another way to mitigate damage is with defensives. Learn what your class and spec's defensive abilities are and be ready to cast them when you know damage is coming out. Any ability that shields you or mitigates damage in some way is a defensive and can save you or at least keep you alive long enough for a healer to save you. And just like DPS have rotations to deal damage, tanks will have rotations that will mitigate damage and self-heal while also dealing damage of their own, and healers will have rotations to keep healing smooth and resources flowing. When learning a new class or spec, I recommend that you can check out the Icy Veins Easy Mode guides to get started with basics. Of course, looking up videos from content creators that make spec guides to see it in action. Joining class-specific discords is pretty helpful. Lots of people will be discussing the specs, asking questions, and sharing opinions. I spoke about Bloodlust and Heroism earlier, and that ability is not available to every class. So many groups running difficult content will make sure that they have a spot in their group reserved for a Lust class to make sure they can take advantage of that really powerful ability. A similar utility groups may save a spot for would be a combat or battle res. Similar to Lust, not every class has this utility, and this can save your group from some pretty nasty situations. There are normal resurrect spells that can only be cast out of combat, but battle res or combat res can be cast in combat. So normally when someone dies, they cannot be resurrected until combat ends, but the battle res can be cast in the middle of a fight. Besides Lust and battle res, many classes bring their own unique advantages to a group called raid buffs as well. These are Blizzard's way of encouraging diversity in compositions of raids, so there's a reason to bring more than just whatever class is doing the most damage. It's great to learn what unique utility your class brings your groups to improve the experience for them and increase your chances of success. Paladin, for example, is a class that brings a ton of potential utility to a group. Paladins have multiple auras that they can select from that will provide buffs simply by being near party members. They also have access to their own battle res ability with Intercession, multiple blessings that they can cast on party members like blessings of protection, freedom, and sacrifice. And they also have a very powerful heal called Lay on Hands. So every class has abilities that they can use to bring something different to the party. Next, we'll talk about consumables and macros. Besides raid buffs and abilities like Lust and battle res, there are consumable items that can be used before and even during combat to provide even more bonuses and improve your damage and performance. Before starting content like raids and dungeons, the typical consumables you would use are buff food, weapon oils, whetstones, runes, There's a lot, but not every character can use every one of these. So once you're familiar with what your class needs, it will be easier to keep track of. Every one of these, of course, you can purchase for yourself off of the auction house, or if you have the relevant profession, you could make it for yourself. Buff food can be prepared with the cooking profession, and no matter what class you're playing, you'll want to use buff food. Unlike most other consumables, to get the benefit of buff food, you actually need to sit still for 10 seconds to fully consume the food and receive the well-fed buff. Although the buff has the same name, it changes depending on what food you've eaten. In addition to personal food that would only benefit you, there are also what are called feasts. These are actually a buff food that everyone in the group can eat from a single use. So when you use a feast, you'll get a marker to place it down, and everyone can gather around and feast, and shower you with praise for taking care of all the lazy and unprepared people in the group that did not bring their own food. One final thing about food. Normally, when you die, you would lose the well-fed buff, and you would need to eat again. But the game now has what are called hearty foods, and these persist upon death. Hearty foods are made by combining multiples of the normal version of that food. So to make a hearty feast, you would need to combine 10 normal feasts to make a single hearty feast. So hearty feasts are substantially more valuable and useful. The next pre-combat consumable to use would be a flask. These are made with the alchemy profession, and they last for an hour. The buff will remain even if you die, so it's a great buff to take advantage of. If you don't really care for professions and are more concerned with just the combat, I would suggest picking up the alchemy profession and leveling it up just enough to get level 25 and earn 15 knowledge points. Because in the alchemy profession talent tree, you can actually take the fluent in flask specialization, and by investing 15 points here into the first node, you will double the amount of time that your flask buff lasts for. This is a huge gold saver, essentially cutting in half the number of flasks you'll need to use. Final thing to say about flasks is that they have a similar thing to feasts called cauldrons. Cauldron can be placed just like a feast would be, and once it's placed, it will have 40 charges, and raid and party members will have a choice of which flask buff to take from the cauldron. Similar to feasts, cauldrons are much more expensive to make because of the value they provide. Next, there are what are called weapon enhancements, not to be confused with enchantments that we talked about earlier in the gearing section. These are whetstones, weapon oils, and ammos that apply temporary buffs to your weapons. It's worth noting that if you used a second enhancement on a weapon that already has an enhancement buff applied, it would overwrite the previous one. So which one of these three you use will depend on your class and the weapon you're using. Some classes like Enhancement Shaman, go figure, will actually have abilities that enhance their weapons, so they won't need to bother with weapon enhancement consumables. Now that we have all the pre-combat buffs sorted out, we got to think about our during combat consumables. The main thing here to worry about are potions. There are stat potions, utility potions, and health potions. Stat potions will typically give you a huge stat boost for 30 seconds, but they do have a hefty 5-minute cooldown period. Utility potions can offer some other useful effects, like invisibility pots, for example, and mana pots that can restore a large chunk of mana, but it's worth noting that stat and utility potions will share that same 5-minute cooldown, so you can only use one of them at a time, and then you would need to wait 5 minutes before you could use another one, so choose wisely. I find that stat potions generally are the better choice, as they can have a huge impact on your damage and healing. Last, there are health pots, and luckily these have their own 5-minute cooldown separate from the others, so you could use a stat potion and then use a healing potion in quick succession if you needed to. And these should obviously be used when you find yourself at low health and there is still damage incoming, or just to make your healer's life that much easier. Keep your health pots stocked up and use them regularly. Your healer will appreciate it. As for deciding when to use stat potions, many would line them up with Lust and your strongest cooldowns and on-use trinkets. All these things together make for the ultimate damage window, and if the whole party is doing it all together, you can absolutely melt your enemies. So since we are talking about lining up cooldowns, pots, and trinkets, this is a good time to talk a little about macros. In case you don't know, macros are just customizable text commands. It's basically a script that you can create to assign multiple actions to a single button. Popular macro you might see would be one that uses your cooldowns, racial ability, stat potion, and trinket all on one button. I like to refer to this as the send button. This may not always work perfectly since some things are cast instantly and others require cast time, but you can also just spam the button until everything is used. Spam the button until everything important is cast, then go right back to your typical rotation. It's nice having macros like these for when your party has just hit Lust and all your cooldowns are ready to go. You can get everything rolling with a single button and then just focus on pumping out damage. But macros are versatile, and can be used in many creative ways. For example, you could set up a macro to conditionally use abilities depending on your target, or what you are mousing over even. Healers may enjoy setting up a macro that will cast a healing ability when targeting or mousing over a friendly, but that same button could conditionally change the ability being used if they are targeting or mousing over an enemy instead. A damaging ability would then be cast. This would allow them to use a single button for multiple actions and allow them to save on important keybinds. I'm no expert macro creator at all though, so I do leave it to all the big brains out there to write the useful macros, and I'm perfectly content copying and pasting these as I need them. You can get as deep into the weeds with macros as you want though, so if that's your thing, go for it. Next we'll cover the actual flow of dungeons, raids, and delves, which are the 3 pillars of endgame PvE content. First, dungeons are 5-person instances consisting of a tank, healer, and 3 DPS that will enter the dungeon either through a queue or forming a party in the group finder and meeting up at the dungeon. Once inside, the tank will lead the group through the instance, fighting enemies along the way, with the main goal being to defeat every boss in the instance. There are many dungeons in the game that have been added over the years, but they all have that in common at least. Some dungeons are straightforward. Go down the hall, kill the bosses, reach the end, while others can be a little bit more wide open, allowing the group more freedom in their approach, and maybe even allowing you to decide what order you're going to tackle the bosses in. Some dungeons will have puzzles to solve or obstacles to evade, and in a standard dungeon, each boss will have some loot for you to be gained and some XP to be earned if you're not max level yet. If you look on the left of the screen here at this arrow here, you can click it to pull out a menu with some commands that can do a ready check to see if the group is prepared, countdown timer to sync up your attack with the group when starting combat, some placeable markers, which are useful for coordinating positions for bosses that have mechanics. But what are mechanics, you might ask? If bosses were all just the same fight against enemies with slightly more health than a typical enemy, it would get boring really quick. So many bosses in WoW have abilities or phases in which you'll be required to do things other than damage. These are mechanics. Some mechanics involve positioning in safe spots, dodging multiple moving hazards, passing off a hot potato debuff that cannot go on the same person multiple times or they die, going through portals to dodge a wave of energy, or many other things. Mechanics will test both your reaction time and on-the-fly reasoning skills, as well as your ability to communicate with your team. Now, if you are in voice comms, things will be a lot easier to do. But a lot of the time, you're going to end up in a group without any voice comms happening, and it can be difficult to type up a storm mid-combat. But there is a ping system. Simply tapping the G key will have a standard ping on your location of your mouse, or the unit that you've moused over when you hit it. But holding G will give you a radial menu with different types of pings that can be helpful in providing just a tiny bit of communication, whether you're pinging a safe spot or warning of some danger. Dungeons have normal, heroic, and mythic difficulties. Normal dungeons unlock as you level up. Heroics will require a certain item level to enter at max level, and mythics mean you'll be entering a mythic 0 version of the dungeon, which is more challenging because the enemies will have much more health and deal much more damage than a normal dungeon. During a season, only certain dungeons will be available at Mythic 0. After completing a Mythic 0 during a season, you will get access to a keystone to enter one of the seasonal dungeons at the Mythic Plus level. Keystones will have a +2 or higher value and will allow you to enter that dungeon as a Mythic Plus dungeon. These are the end game for dungeons in which you are racing to finish the dungeon within a time limit, and as the keystone reaches higher levels, the difficulty of the dungeon scales higher with more enemy health, more enemy damage, and even weekly rotating affixes to bring more challenge. The dungeons will not count as completed unless you defeat a certain amount of enemy forces, often referred to as your trash count. Every non-boss enemy will count for some percentage of value towards your enemy forces, and you will need to reach 100% to finish the dungeon. In addition to getting your trash count, you will also need to defeat every boss in the dungeon as well. When both of these conditions have been met, the timer will stop. You'll have either passed and upgraded your keystone to a higher level, or you will have failed and bricked your key, which will downgrade it by 1 level unless it's already at +2, which is the lowest Mythic Plus difficulty. Unlike normal dungeons, Mythic Plus dungeons only offer loot at the end of the dungeon after the timer has stopped, and you are not guaranteed to receive loot either. If you do receive loot, it is tradable to other participants of that run for a period of time. So if you were to receive loot that you do not need, but someone else in the group stands to benefit from it, you could trade it to them. It's worth noting that if a loot drop is considered an upgrade for your character compared to your current gear, it will be soulbound and not be able to be traded. The game will roll after every key to dish out bonus loot as well that is warbound. This loot will be a lower gear track and may even be a different armor type as well. But any warband gear can be placed in your warband bank and traded to an alternate character that could use it. Besides the timer and scaling difficulties, affixes are added at certain key levels to further spice up the challenge. So currently, affixes are added at +2, +4, +7, and +10. And these are additive, so every time you get to the next level, you're going to have both of those affixes. So at a +10, you're going to have 4 affixes. But at +12, all previous affixes are removed and replaced with a single affix that punishes player deaths by removing 15 seconds from the clock instead of the normal 5. Throughout the key levels, failure leads to bricking the key and dropping it down a level. But if you manage to time all 8 dungeons in the season at +12 difficulty, you will earn what are called resilient keys. These make it so that your key will not drop below 12 on failure, so a couple bad runs won't set you back too far. Resilient keys can be made at each level above 12 as well, so if you keep pushing and time every key at a +13, that would become your new resilient key floor. If for some reason you wanted to lower your key, you could always speak with Lindormi, and she will lower it for you. Last about Mythic Plus, as you time keys, you will start earning IO score, which will show your progress throughout the season. Reaching certain thresholds provides you with rewards that many set as seasonal goals. Reaching 1500 earns you a title, 2000 earns you a mount, 2500 earns a special appearance effect for your tier sets, and 3000 will earn you another mount. As I was creating this guide, Blizzard has recently announced the Keystone Myth and Umbral Champions, which are coming as new achievements with new rewards coming in patch 12.0.5. The newly announced Keystone Myth will be completed upon reaching 3,400 IO rating, and players will be able to earn a time loss saddle. You can earn this once per warband per season to exchange for a mount of your choice, including mounts from previous Mythic Plus seasons. They have also announced the Umbral Champion, which will be awarded to the players in the top 1% with Mythic Plus rating. This will get you the new achievement Umbral Champion, and you will get an exclusive mount. There's also a special hero title, only earned by the top 0.1% of Mythic Plus players. This is a huge achievement and will require a dedicated push team, and the push will most likely continue late into the season. Highly competitive. Next, let's talk raids. Raids are another pillar of endgame content that is meant for larger group sizes to take on challenging bosses in epic locations. LFR is a queued version of a raid that doesn't usually require a lot of organization. Just queue up, follow the tank, smack the boss. Normal and heroic are flexible difficulties and can be run with a group size anywhere from 10 to 30. But mythic difficulty raids are strictly 20-person groups. These raid difficulties are all formed either within a guild or in the group finder. But mythic raids currently have a specific instance ID, so once you start a mythic raid, you are locked to that single instance with the same group members, making it very difficult to have a random group form and accomplish the raid on mythic difficulty, since it's the most difficult content in the game, other than very high Mythic Plus dungeons. What separates raids the most from dungeons is that the boss encounters are the stars of the raid. These bosses are usually mechanic heavy, involving lots of teamwork and problem solving from the group to survive and whittle down the boss's health. These bosses hit hard, and typically if you do not manage to defeat them within a certain amount of time, they can become enraged, which means they get a super buff that is meant to wipe the raid. The beauty of raiding is figuring out the boss with your team and earning the glorious loot. Loot from a raid boss works differently than a dungeon boss though. After defeating a raid boss, there is a dice rolling system in which you can roll for loot at specific levels. There is need, transmog, and greed rolls. Need is if an item is usable for your spec and could be an upgrade. This takes priority over the other two types of rolls. Transmog rolling is if you are rolling for the appearance of the drop. Transmog rolls take priority over greed rolls only. And greed rolls are for if the loot is not usable by you. Finally, if you're not interested in the loot at all, you could just pass on it and not roll at all. Loot tables from raid bosses are usually chock full of the best gear of the season, so even if you don't have a raiding guild, it's often worth your time and effort to apply to groups and experience the content. Now, normal and heroic are often run in the group finder since they do not have the instance ID like Mythic, so it's just a lot easier to jump into a normal or heroic group and send it. If it doesn't work out, you can just leave and look for another group. Just like Mythic Plus, Raid also has some cool rewards to earn, like the Ahead of the Curve achievement, which can earn you the tier set effects, the same as earning 2500 IO in Mythic Plus. Completing the Raid's Glory of achievement will earn you a mount. Glory of achievements usually involve a bunch of other smaller achievements within the raid that they apply to. Killing the final raid boss of the tier on Mythic difficulty also will reward you with the Cutting Edge achievement, along with a trophy decor for your housing. And killing the final boss also gets you a chance at the Mythic mount drop. Finally, if your guild is among the first 200 worldwide to kill the final raid boss, you can earn the famed Slayer title as well. Finally, the last and latest PvE pillar, we have Delves, which were introduced in War Within. Delves are the endgame content meant for solo play, although you can run Delves with up to 5 people, but the way the scaling works, it usually feels easier to play solo. A Delve is an instant scenario that has multiple storylines associated with it, and usually kind of feels like a mini dungeon, in which you run through, fight some enemies, maybe do some puzzles, and fight a boss. The Delve system features a companion that will run through the Delve with you that you can assign to act as a healer, tank, or DPS for you. If you're playing a DPS, it's best to set them as a healer to keep you alive. If you're a tank, it's best to set them as a DPS, and if you're a healer, it's best to set them as a tank. As you run Delves with them, your companion will level up, and you will find curios that grant them unique abilities to assist in the Delves. Each curio can be collected multiple times to rank it up to a stronger version of itself as well. Delves have 11 tiers of difficulty, with tier 1 being the easiest and tier 11 being the most difficult. You start at tier 1 and will need to complete each tier one at a time to unlock the next tier above it. To complete a Delve, you need to complete all the goals listed without running out of lives. Each time you die, you lose a life, and if you die with 0 lives remaining, you will fail the Delve. You can still finish the Delve at this point, but since they don't usually take that long, it's usually a better idea to just walk out and reset it. Unless you're like at the final boss and just want to knock it out and get it over with. You will still get some loot, it's just not as much. Each season of Delves will feature a nemesis, and this is the big bad evil encounter that can be run at either question mark or double question mark difficulty. And it's usually pretty fun and challenging compared to a lot of other solo content in the game. Delves reward gold, gear, and a currency called Undercoin that can be spent at Delver's HQ for cool rewards. Each season has a Delve journey that you progress through to unlock certain seasonal rewards and opens up certain things to be purchased with Undercoin. Finally, every day there will be 4 bountiful Delves, which you can see on your map. This is a normal Delve right there. See how it's kind of brownish, kind of gross? Right here. Yeah, this one is glowing. The doorway has an orange light in it, and the stone is actually stone colored. So this is a bountiful Delve. So every day there will be 4 bountiful Delves that feature a special bountiful chest that can be only opened up with restored coffer keys. I have 3 restored coffer keys on me right now. Certain weekly quests may reward you straight up entire coffer keys, and other weekly activities will give you coffer key shards, which 100 of them can be combined to make a full coffer key. But these chests offer decent gear when you're starting out, but be aware, to earn the maximum rewards, you'll want to use your coffer keys and run bountiful Delves at tier 8 at least. Beyond tier 8, the rewards are mostly the same, except that the first 3 tier 11 Delves you complete each week will give you a gilded chest. Early on in your Delver's journey, this will just contain hero crests, but once you reach level 4, I believe, of the Delver's journey this season, it will give you myth crests from running Delves. And these are the highest level crests that can be used for upgrading mythic track gear and for crafting the strongest possible gear. Certainly worth it to earn these crests if you are not able to earn them from Mythic Plus or Raid. And finally, when running Delves, you may be ambushed by that season's nemesis. And this is actually a good thing when it happens, because you can fight them and earn some rewards. You can even earn a bounty map. This is a consumable that once you use, it guarantees that the next Delve you complete complete will have a bounty chest. When run at tier 8 or higher, this chest will contain a hero track piece of gear which is quite strong for solo content. If you use a bounty map on one of your first 3 tier 11 delves of the week, this will allow you to reach the maximum amount of myth crest that you can get from delves in the week. Some notable rewards for defeating the nemesis can include cosmetics, a title, a mount, and if you're one of the first 4,000 players in your region to defeat the nemesis on double ? Difficulty, you will earn a unique Fabled Vanquisher title. Now that we know about the 3 endgame pillars of PvE, let's cover tier sets and the Great Vault. Every season comes with a new tier set, which is unique armor that can only be worn by each class. And beyond a cool unique class appearance, it also offers very powerful set bonuses for your spec. The way the set bonuses work is if you get a part of the set bonus while wearing 2 pieces of the tier set, and you get the second part of the set bonus while wearing 4 pieces. The kicker here is that only the head, chest, shoulders, hands, and leg pieces can contribute to tier set bonuses. So even though there are other tier set pieces like waist, feet, bracers, and back, those ones do not contribute to the set bonus. This is worth noting because of the catalyst, and this is a cool system that allows you to transform normal gear into tier gear. The catalyst only gives you a charge every other week, so early on in a season you want to be very smart about its usage to optimize your gearing process. Getting your tier set bonuses as soon as possible will be the most beneficial. It's also worth noting that there's an achievement to earn an extra catalyst charge by either earning a rating of 1600 at PvP, earning 2000 IO in Mythic Plus, or by defeating the final raid boss of the season on heroic or higher difficulty. Keep in mind that when you catalyze a piece of gear, the tier piece it produces will be of the same quality track. So if you were to catalyze a hero track headpiece, you would receive a hero track head tier piece. Ideally, you want to reach a point where you have 4 mythic track pieces of tier for your bis. Some classes may use only the 4 ideal pieces, and some may use even more depending on what's the most beneficial. Now we'll talk about the Great Vault. This is a source of gear that is populated every Tuesday after Blizzard does server maintenance, and its contents are decided by your achievements the week before in raids, dungeons, and delves, with harder content rewarding better gear. Every week the vault can hold up to 9 pieces of gear total, but you can only take 1, so choose wisely. The top row is the raid row with 3 slots that can drop gear from the raid boss's loot tables or tier set pieces. The slots are filled up by killing 2 raid bosses for the first spot, 4 for the second, and 6 for the third. The track of the gear that will populate depends on the difficulty of the raid bosses that you defeated. So far this week, I've only done LFR. Defeating LFR bosses rewards vet gear, normal raid rewards champ gear, heroic raid rewards heroic gear, and mythic raid rewards myth gear. Although it drops loot from the raid boss loot tables, it's important to note that it does matter which bosses you've killed at which difficulty. So let's say you cleared the raid on normal, but only the first 4 bosses on heroic. The vault will populate with the highest content rewards first and work its way down. Killing 4 heroic bosses would get you these first 2 slots filled up with hero gear. But after that, since your 4 bosses are being applied to these 2 for your last one, it would only apply the normal champ gear. Yeah, the 2 heroic track rewards would only be from the first 4 bosses loot tables, and the third spot would be a champion piece, but it would also include the 5th and 6th bosses loot tables as possible rewards. Before you get any ideas to cheese this by skipping out on killing earlier bosses and just killing the last 2 bosses to only get loot from their tables, once you've cleared a boss, that boss's loot table and all previous bosses' loot tables at that difficulty will be possible rewards for the rest of the season. Mythic raiding is the best source of myth gear, since you'll have a chance to get drops from the raid bosses themselves, and you will also have a chance at getting mythic gear in the vault. The last few bosses in a raid at heroic difficulty may have a chance to drop slightly higher rewards than the rest of the raid, but only defeating mythic bosses is going to give you mythic gear in the vault. Next, we have the dungeon row. The slots here are filled up with 1 dungeon, 4 dungeons, and 8 dungeons. So you have a chance of getting tier pieces, or, unlike raid, it doesn't matter which dungeons you complete. The loot tables of every seasonal dungeon will be included in these 3 slots. But just like with raid, the gear track and item level of the gear will be decided by the difficulty of the dungeons that you've completed. Just like raid, it takes your highest completed Mythic Plus dungeons into account first when filling the slots. For example, let's say one week you completed 3 plus 10 keys, 3 plus 6 keys, and 2 Mythic 0 dungeons dungeons. So in total, you did complete 8 dungeons, but you would end up with 3 different tracks of gear with your spread of difficulties. The smaller slot on the left will fill first. Your highest single dungeon you completed was a +10. You did do 3 +10s, but it's only going to count the first one because this slot is 1 dungeon. The next slot is going to look at your top 4 dungeons completed in that last week. Since you did 3 10s and 3 6s, it's going to reward you as if you did 4 6s here. Now, just doing 4 +10s would fix that issue, so you would only be 1 +10 off from turning this into another myth slot. And finally, your last slot will reward you based off of your top 8 dungeons completed. Although you did 3 +10s and 3 +6s, your last 2 were Mythic Zeros, so this slot is going to reward you at a Mythic 0 level. Besides Mythic rating, completing Mythic +10 or higher dungeons is one of the few ways to get Mythic gear. The last row in the Great Vault is the open world track, and this can be filled a number of ways, but for the best reward, just know that you need to complete 8 Tier 8 delves. This season, you can actually fill some of that with Prey. This row is filled with 2 delves or world activities, 4 delves or world activities, and 8 delves or world activities. The loot tables for this row include all delve loot tables as well as open world content loot tables. This makes delves stronger earlier in the season since they can reward a hero piece once a week from the bountiful delves. And if you complete 8 Tier 8 delves, you also have 3 hero pieces to select from in the vault. Just like raid and dungeon rows, the game takes your highest difficulty content into account first. So completing 7 Tier 8 delves and 1 Tier 7 delve, the last slot would just reward you as if it were a Tier 7 delve. As the season progresses and you gear up, you may reach a point where some weeks the Great Vault does not really have anything useful for you. On weeks like that, you'll be forced to take tokens as a reward in place of gear. On weeks like that, if you don't want to grab some of those pieces for Transmog, you might want to take some tokens. While tokens are much less exciting, they can still be useful. There's a vendor near the vault that offers some things that can only be purchased with these tokens. These items include crest bundles, gold, and an item that allows you to add a socket onto helms, bracers, or belts. Sockets allow you to place gems into your gear, which give you some extra stats. So we have talked about crests a few times, so let's finally go over how they can be used, as well as sparks, another currency that you can earn slowly throughout a season for crafting powerful gear. There are Adventurer Crest, Veteran Crest, Champion Crest, Hero Crest, and Myth Crest, and these are used to upgrade gear of the matching track. Each gear track has a range of item level from 1 through 6, so you can upgrade a single piece of gear up to 5 times to get it to its highest potential of 6 out of 6. Each upgrade currently costs 20 crests, but as Blizzard iterates and evolves systems, this and other things are subject to change. Each upgrade will cost 20 more crests and a small bit of gold. Another thing worth noting is that at the beginning of each season, there's a weekly cap on the number of crests you can acquire. You can see here, I've capped out on my hero quests. I have 20 mythic crests, but I can earn 200 more. So you need to be very careful and deliberate in your crest spending early on in a season to maximize your gearing process. This cap eventually does drop later on, allowing people to farm all the crests they need though. So don't stress about it too much if you're just going to play later. Besides upgrading gear, crests can also be spent on crafting gear. But to craft the strongest possible gear, you will need sparks, which are earned every other week. Sparks allow for gear to reach the highest level, but you will also need to imbue your gear with crests. To get the maximum item level out of this chest piece, it says right there at the bottom, requires 80 Myth Dawn crests. So the combination of sparks and Myth crests is what you will need to craft the strongest items in the game. Two-handed weapons will actually require 4 sparks instead of 2, will still only cost 80 crests. Gear crafted this way cannot reach the same level as 6 out of 6 myth gear, but it can get you very powerful gear that is essentially mythic adjacent. Now for the last section, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to share what my personal week in WoW might look like, so you'll kind of get a feel for how the endgame flows. This is just how my week might go, but many different people have many different preferences in how they play the game. Starting on Tuesday, because every Tuesday Blizzard does its weekly server maintenance, which means there will be downtime that the game is not playable. So make sure you never take any PTO to play WoW on a Tuesday. After work, I would log in on my main character, I'd run to check my vault for upgrades, and either be met with disappointment of nothing good, or celebration if a piece I've been waiting for is finally there. Or the most likely scenario, there are a few potential upgrades to choose from, and it's not obvious which one I should take. I would use the Simulation Craft add-on, SimC, and I would post it on raid bots to kind of see what's going to be more beneficial for me. And I might not even take something immediately. I might run off and do some of my weekly activities first to see if I might get something better there that might help me influence which choice I should take in the vault. Tuesdays, I usually like to knock out all the weekly blue quests to get the easier rewards and weekly resources. And these activities are likely to change with each major patch, and definitely with the new expansion, but it still ends up being kind of a similar thing. Usually each of the major zones from the latest expansion will have their own weekly repeatable activity, like the Stormarian Assault in Voidstorm, the Abundance event from Zul'Aman that switches locations every day, the Legends of Harenir weekly in Harendar, and the Soiree event in Eversong Woods. Liadrin also has a choice quest that could be as simple as going to the Arcantina and doing a couple cheers, or one of the other weekly activities that I'm going to be doing anyways. These are all usually pretty quick and easy to knock out and give me some resources to keep things going. Doing stuff like this is also a source for sparks that are not super plentiful, so it's nice to make sure you get them as soon as you can. The next day, I might run some tier 11 delves for easy gilded crests, work on some of the current reputations, achievements, maybe do some of the nightmare prey system that they've added this expansion to hunt down some enemies while waiting for some guildies to do some fun and PvP maybe. Thursday, I might take the night off from the game and do some writing, recording, video editing. I know I'm pretty slow at getting content out, but I do spend a lot of time thinking about it, and my creation process is probably just a little bit slow. Friday night is our guild's Mythic Plus night. We do have enough members to run multiple groups, and it's a lot of fun. Things get hectic, maybe we'll have a few drinks, and hopefully we can knock out some plus 10s and fill out our vaults with some Mythic gear. Saturday's our raid night. We'll meet up at the same time and run into the raid with high hopes of smacking bosses and sharing hard-earned loot. And Sunday night, I might take another night off, working on some more videos or other projects. I do have a whole series focused on housing I've talked about, so check that out. Or maybe I just might even be pugging some Mythic Dungeons for a 0 to Hero challenge. And Monday night, might get together with some people that need a couple more dungeons to make sure their vault is set for the next day. And that's pretty much it. Your weekly flow can look however you want it to look. Hopefully this guide was helpful. I tried to be as comprehensive as possible so that you can return to this at any time and use the timestamps to have the best experience learning and enjoying this game. Please consider liking and subscribing for more guides and other fun WoW content. But thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.